Howdy. My name is Monica Cuellar Menzel, class of 1993, and thank you for joining us for the 16th annual Texas A&M Hispanic Network Summit. Like many events over the last year, we have gone virtual. And while one of the hallmarks of our organization is the connections that we make with current students and former students, which is best served in person, we have built such a nice momentum over the last year and a half since our last summit in Dallas in 2019. We didn't want to go another season without sharing the great work of our network and the impact that it's had on Hispanic Aggies, current and future. We hope too that with the virtual format, we might be reaching members that otherwise may not have had a chance to catch us at a past summit. So if you're new to the network, howdy and welcome. The mission of the Texas A&M Hispanic Network, like all constituent groups, is deeply rooted in the commitment to help Texas A&M achieve its charter as a land-grant university. Specifically, our mission is to serve as an advocate and support group on Hispanic concerns and issues at the university and local communities within the larger association of former students. Together, we dynamically work toward increasing the number of Hispanic students attending Texas A&M University, enhancing their experience, education, and quality of life on campus and beyond. Said very simply, we help Texas A&M attract Hispanic students at levels that reflect the demographics of our great state. We have made some terrific progress, but our work is not done. As we've seen the percentages of Hispanic students rising each year, a critical mass of representation is emerging. Hispanic students are increasingly attaining roles of leadership across the university in student government and student organizations. This is an important inflection point for students and former students to recognize, because as many of us former students know, leadership skills and the confidence to lead are what really differentiate Aggies from other graduates. And so this year's theme is Leadership is Our Legacy, lighting the path of opportunity. We want to share the good work that's been going on campus that has been influenced by the stronger presence of Hispanic students. We want to share the activism and advocacy that Hispanic student leaders are bringing forward. And for our founding members of our network who are joining us today virtually, we hope you will recognize and have a sense of pride how far the Hispanic Aggie experience has progressed in just over the last couple of decades. But I will say again, our work is not done. As we continue to admit more first-generation Hispanic students, we are also now graduating more first-generation professionals, many of whom will be looking to former students like you and me for guidance, mentorship, and support. I hope that you will consider becoming more involved in the Texas A&M Hispanic Network. There are many ways to contribute and engage. There are leadership opportunities, which we'll be talking about throughout the summit today, and in more detail in our business meeting. You can become a paying member by signing up on our website, tamhn.aggienetwork.com. There's many membership options, as little as $12 a month for 12 months at a time, or a standard annual membership of $50. And there are discounts available for recent graduates. Or you can contribute at the family legacy level, which is a $2,500 one-time contribution that can be paid in $500 annual installments. Membership dues and donations go toward local chapters that you can designate for scholarships, matriculation programs, campus visits, networking events, and professional development programming. Or you can contribute by becoming a mentor or engaging in your local chapter's leadership as a volunteer to help raise funds for scholarships or coordinate networking activities, partner with prospective student centers to recruit new Aggies. Think back for a minute how your life was forever changed and positively affected by the fact that you graduated from Texas A&M. Think about how you may be able to change the trajectory of a high school student of similar background who is contemplating becoming an Aggie by sharing with them your experience on the path that you took and showing them the success that you've reaped after graduation as you've progressed in your career pursuits, and how the Aggie Network helped you. So pass it back, Ags. I hope you will consider giving of your time, treasure, and talent to the Texas A&M Hispanic Network. I recognize that folks will be dropping in and out over the next couple of hours, so you may hear me repeat my little commercial over the summit today. For those that will be joining us later on. We have a great lineup for our summit discussion. We have a special message first from the chairman of the Board of Regents of Texas A&M, Elaine Mendoza. She will be followed by a couple of great Joes, Joe Pettibon from the Office of Admissions to give us the latest read on the progress of admitting Hispanic students. Also joining us, and always a treat, is Brigadier General Joe Ramirez, Commandant of the Fightin' Texas Aggie Corps Cadets. He'll be speaking to us about the great leaders that the Corps is building. We also have a fantastic panel discussion from current Hispanic student leaders around advocacy and activism that's taking place on campus today. And we'll round out our day with Professor Felipe Hinojosa, who will be sharing with us a little known true story of Aggie legacy that you all are really going to enjoy. We'll wrap up the morning with a brief but comprehensive business meeting for our network members. Before we get started, I have to extend a special thank you to our sponsors, which I think you saw on the flash page when we first began the summit. They have generously given to support our cause. And with the lower cost of producing the summit virtually, it's enabled us to offer more scholarships this year. Stay tuned for more information on that, but we want to say thank you very much. Also, thank you to the Rudder Theater Complex team for their help in producing this event virtually. And last but not least, our Brazos Valley chapter, led by Dr. Roger Martinez, and 2021 Summit Chairperson Tamara Garza for all the hard work in assembling an all-star cast and getting the word out. Again, thank you all for joining. Before we start, just a few housekeeping notes. Everyone is already muted. That'll cut down on the background noise. At any time, you can ask questions throughout the Q&A, using the Q&A or chat function, and we'll have time after each of our live speakers to answer them. At the end of the summit, you will be receiving a survey for our former students. There's an election ballot for next year's officers. So please check your email after we conclude. Our first presentation is a message from Elaine Mendoza, chairperson of the Texas A&M Board of Regents. Ms. Mendoza received her Bachelor of Science degree in Aerospace Engineering from Texas A&M University and is the founder, president, and CEO of Conceptual Mineworks, Inc., CMI. Established in 1990, CMI is a biotechnology and medical informatics company located in San Antonio, Texas. Within the biotechnology industry, her company builds scientific and technical teams to develop and deliver unique solutions to address issues in areas such as chemical, biological defense, trauma medicine, and population health. Ms. Mendoza received the Women's Legacy Award from the Aggie Women's Association in 2014, and in 2013 received the Outstanding Alumni Award from the Dwight Look College of Engineering here at Texas A&M. She has served 2 terms as vice chairman of the board from 2015 to 2019 and was elected chairman of the board in 2019. So at this time, we're pleased to present a special message from Elaine Mendoza.
Howdy, I'm Elaine Mendoza, class of 1987, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. The Hispanic Aggie Network is a significant organization doing incredible things, and not just for Hispanic Aggies, but for all Aggies. You see, the Hispanic Aggie Network is strengthening Texas A&M, is preparing it for even greater heights than it is today. And we have so much to be proud of. Take a look at our growth over the last few years. Check out what's happening at our law school, where it keeps rising in the rankings year after year in a relatively short period of time. Look at our physicianeers in engineering medicine. Unique. Check out what's happening in the College of Agriculture, and the College of Business, College of Liberal Arts, the College of Education and Human Development, where we are graduating educators that will be making a difference all across Texas for many, many years. We do have a lot to be proud of, but there's still work to do. We're this close to becoming a Hispanic serving institution. And it is because of the Hispanic Aggie Network that makes this even possible. As we talk about being Aggies, we go to our communities and talk about being Aggies. how we carry ourselves, and how we lead will determine how much we can impact bringing more and more Hispanic students to Texas A&M. And I know that is the topic of the day, leadership and lighting the path to opportunities. We must take that responsibility to be lighting the path for those who are coming after us. Luckily, we're Aggies. We have our 6 core values upon which to lean. One of them is leadership. But if you take the other 5, it bolsters leadership in a perfect way. Excellence, integrity, loyalty, respect, and selfless service. Wrap that around leadership. You've got a real powerful way to contribute and to bring forward those who are coming behind. Now, let's pair up selfless service with leadership, becoming servant leaders. That's where the difference is really made. And I would hope that if we all strove for that to be our motto, to be servant leaders, if we reached and worked towards that, those that are coming behind us will see and experience great things, and they will take it even to the next level. Be better leaders than we could ever be. Make a difference, even more so than we are making. That's exciting. Now, indeed, COVID has made an impact. It's been challenging at best for all of us. Our current students have had to wrestle with things that I don't know how I would have handled, quite frankly. Those who graduated during this time, kudos to them for their resilience, for their perseverance. To our current students who are making their way through this whole environment, let's applaud them and appreciate their perseverance and resilience to make this happen. They've been hardened. If they can do that, they can do anything. The future is so incredibly bright. And as those who are coming before them, it is incumbent upon us to do the best we can to take on the mantle of servant leadership. And it matters not whether it's in a university environment, in a classroom, in a business, in the community, in our own families. This is something we must embrace and strive for, and not forget the other elements of our Aggie core values. Do it with excellence. Keep your integrity. Be loyal to your cause. Have respect for every individual. And yes, selfless service. It's got to be focused on selfless service. Those who will come behind us will see the possible, how we are striving to serve. And hopefully they will embrace it as well. We are so close to doing even better things as a university, as an Aggie community, as Hispanic Aggies. When we can do this. We continue to do this. And thanks to the Hispanic Aggie Network, we'll be able to do this together. Thank you so much for all the contributions to date. And thank you in advance for all the contributions yet to come. And to all those who are coming behind us, challenge us, hold us accountable to being servant leaders, push us to be better, to strive for better, so that you can create an incredible future for yourselves, your family, and for us. Aggies make a difference wherever we go, but imagine the force of the Hispanic Aggie community taking it even further. It's incredible. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Again, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share some time with you. And with any luck, we've got this pandemic behind us and we're off moving forward to create an even better tomorrow. Thanks and gig 'em.
Howdy, I'm Tamara Guayar Garza, class of 2001, and I'm happy to present our next speaker today. Joe Pettibon began his career at Texas A&M more than 25 years ago as a programmer in the financial aid department. Today, he serves as the Vice President for Enrollment and Academic Services in the Office of the Provost here at the university. He oversees enrollment services, that's admissions, the registrar, scholarships and financial aid, international student services, the visitor center, and the career center, as well as the business, financial, and IT functions of academic affairs. He's kind of a big deal. I can say personally that I've worked with him in the Office of the Provost, and I've seen this gentleman play an instrumental role in the decisions that were made around the university's COVID response and rapid transition online. It's been quite a year. The lift was huge, the largest in the nation, as a matter of fact. And we're grateful for his leadership to the university and friendship to this organization. Thank you for being here, Joe. I'll let you take it away.
Howdy. As Tamara said, my name is Joe Pettibon, and it's a privilege to be with you today, even if it is virtual. I have to say I much prefer the interactions that we have in person at the annual summit, in part because your passion and your commitment to Texas A&M University is inspiring to me and energizes the work that we do. So let me say thank you to all of you for your support of Texas A&M University, for the work that you've done on behalf of the university, increasing the number of Hispanic students that are enrolled here. And while the summit this year is virtual, the idea that you're committing more money to scholarships is actually something that I fully support. So obviously scholarships is a huge part of the resources that we make available to students to enable them to come to Texas A&M. So thank you for your generosity in that regard as well. For those of you who've heard me do this presentation before and provide an update, you know that I always like to start off a little bit with kind of the message that we give to students and why Texas A&M University. You know, I've had the privilege of being with you for, I think, all 16 years of the summits that you have had. And so starting off, just kind of, how do we talk about Texas A&M to students? And this is kind of the message that we start with at this point in time. We really talk to students about, first of all, doing well in the classroom, being committed to your studies, investing in yourself. You know, this opportunity at Texas A&M University is an investment in your future and is an investment that will pay off. We encourage students, find your fit here. There are over 1,100 student organizations. And one of the things that has always been true here is if you don't find the fit within one of those 1,100, which is hard to imagine, we have a tradition of starting new ones. So there's always the opportunity for somebody to find their fit here at A&M. Challenge yourself, engage with the faculty. Maybe honors is an area that you want to pursue, maybe not, maybe it's in undergraduate research. But challenge yourself in new ways when you come to Texas A&M, and then really plan for success. Your success is something that you need to take advantage of and push and look at what are the opportunities that are there. And we have resources here to help you. One of those obviously is the Career Center and looking at internships and job opportunities. And maybe you want to go on to professional school, get your MD or your DVM. And so plan for success, but you have to plan for your success. Obviously, when we look at Texas A&M University, you know, there are a few highlights that we always like to point out. One of those being that we are the first public university of higher learning in Texas. something that people are generally excited about. You might also note our first year retention rate there is 94.8%. You may have heard me a couple of years ago say that we had started a student success initiative with the goal of going from 92 to 95. You can see we're very close on that. And I have some good news on that that I'll share a little bit later specific to Hispanic students. In addition, we are, depending on how you count, the largest university in the country with about 25% of our students coming in the freshman class still being first generation students. And we're quite proud of continuing to enroll a large number of first generation students. And our financial aid, you know, when I first started doing these kind of presentations, we were around 350 million. Now we're 913 million. We're closing in on $1 billion probably within the next 2 to 3 years. Let's talk a little bit about some admissions numbers. You know, obviously Texas A&M University is a competitive institution that is in demand. You can see over the last 5 years, this is 2017 to 2021, that the number of applications has gone from just over 42,000 this year for fall of 21, just over 55,000 total applications. You'll notice that that represents a little bit over a 10% increase in applications from just last year. So the demand for students to attend this university continues to increase. Our freshman class, you will note in 2017 was 11,200 as the largest freshman class that we had. And we are looking at a freshman class that looks like it could come close to those kind of numbers this fall. So, but that trend continues to be positive in terms of the number of students that we admit and the number of students that we enroll within our freshman class. To give you a sense of how that breaks out, 84% of our students are fully admitted to the university, whereas others are in some sort of program that may require them to start in, say, a co-enrollment at Blinn with the team program or the Texas A&M Engineering Academy at Blinn Bryan, where we have about 1,000 students that start there. We have a little over 300 students that start in the Gateway program, which is our summer provisional program. Students get a head start and if successful in the summer, and well over 95% of those students are successful and continue their enrollment in the fall. And then we have students that start off at our Galveston campus in the College of Engineering, and we have a number of programs that we offer now down in McAllen at our Higher Education Center. Let me switch briefly to transfer students, and you'll notice that the number of applications for the first time went over 10,000 for fall transfer students. And we're still in process for fall transfer in terms of number of students being admitted and completed applications. Some students are able to submit after the spring grades for this spring semester at their current institution that they're attending is completed. So those numbers will continue to rise. So it's still for transfer enrollment for this coming fall, we're still in a processing stage and still in an admission stage. But those numbers remain strong for the university. Switching back quickly to freshman enrollment, just to give you a sense for the makeup of the freshman class, you'll note that our Hispanic enrollment is right at 1/4 of the total number of students that are enrolled in our freshman class. And that has been steadily increasing. Just to give you a little overall picture of Hispanic enrollment at the university this is fall of 2020. The overall Hispanic enrollment is 22.5%. For undergraduate only, we're just below 25%. And obviously 25% is an important marker for the university as that begins to trigger conversations about being a Hispanic serving institution. So we're really close at achieving that. And continue to work on that. And our freshmen and transfer students are almost 1/4 last year. It was 24.75 and 24.1 in terms of transfer enrollment being Hispanic. That transfer number has come up dramatically in the last 7 or 8 years as well, in terms of that percentage being almost a quarter of the Hispanic, of the total enrollment being Hispanic. So let me give you a few highlights of things that are going on campus as it relates to enrollment and admissions. As I mentioned, we've had a record number of applications, both for freshmen and transfer students. We moved in part because of COVID to a test optional admissions. So the SAT and ACT is currently not required for students to enroll. And that is the current position of the university for fall of 21 as well as fall of 22. We have moved away from our automatic admission for those students that scored a 1360 on the SAT and were in the top 25%. This fall is the first time that automatic admission has not been in place. It was important for us to move away from that, not just because of COVID. It was actually a decision that was made before that, but because we felt like there wasn't a whole lot of difference between a student who was 1360 and at 25% versus a student who was 1350 but at 11% in their class. That cutoff just wasn't making sense in the way in which we review students for admission, and felt it was important to bring more of those students into our holistic review. For this coming fall, we did make a decision to increase the number of admits, particularly to the College of Engineering as well as the Mays Business School, adding about 300 students in, or anticipating adding about 300 students between those two colleges. And then we did increase the number of offers we've made in our programs in Galveston as well as McAllen. And worth noting, at McAllen at the Higher Education Center, we have 4 new majors that have started there this coming fall as part of our effort to increase what we're able to offer and the opportunities that students are able to take advantage of down in the Valley. And I'll talk a little bit more on our scholarship programs here in a minute. But last, I want to alert you to the idea that while we've been COVID and there's a lot of things that haven't been done in person, like many other organizations and units, lots of things have been done virtually, and to the tune of over 3,000 virtual events among our recruitment staff, our visitor center, and the work that's being done in multiple offices. So we have been very much engaged, and it's a credit to all of the staff that work here at the university in terms of their ability to pivot and create opportunities, some of which we will keep in place because they're just good opportunities to reach out to students. But one of the things that you may have missed that's going on campus is we did a complete renovation and overhaul of the visitor center here on campus that reopened last summer when we began to have a few things return to campus. So a lot of people haven't seen the renovated visitor center. So if you do make it to campus this summer or this fall, we encourage you to stop by and take a look. There's been a lot of things that have changed, not just in the physical appearance of the visitor center, but also in the way in which we are conducting some of our tours, as well as now having in place what is known as the Howdy Crew, which is a group of students that handle all of our tours. And we've made a point to make sure that that group of tour guides is representative of the institution as well. So for those of you who might have students that are interested in applying to A&M for fall of 22, some dates to keep in mind, or if you're counseling students and helping us recruit, we will open our application for fall of 22 on August 1st. Some of you may recall that we had an opening earlier on July 1 in previous years. We pushed that back to August 1 for a number of reasons. One of those being just some of the challenges that we were hearing from high schools about helping students, particularly in this environment with them being on campus at the high schools. So we agreed to push that back to August 1, but we are keeping our deadline of December 1 for students to submit their application. And believe it or not, we will receive 10% of our applications within the last 24 to 72 hours. For financial aid purposes, what's important to note here is the scholarship portion of the admissions application is important for students to fill out. It has the same deadline of December 1 for applying for scholarships. And then the financial aid, FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, is an important document, as well as the TASFA for our DACA or undocumented students to be able to fill out. That becomes available on October 1, and we encourage students to submit by January 15th if possible. Just kind of an overview of financial aid. As I mentioned previously, $913 million last year in total amount of aid that was awarded to students. One of the things that has been, and we don't really count it in the context of our total aid dollars, but one of the things that our financial aid office has had to do this last year is really work with the funding that the federal government has provided to students. And so they've actually distributed an additional $40 million this year that came through the stimulus funds and able to help students who are have been dealing with some challenging financial positions because of their experience with COVID. Mentioning some of the scholarship programs, hopefully most of you are familiar with our Regent Scholars Program, which is for students who are first generation and come from family incomes less than 40,000. This is an area where with the help of the system and some of the work that's been done with the Commission on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, where we have invested some additional resources. So some of you are aware that the system made available with the support of the Board of Regents, allocating $10 million a year for the next 10 years to all of the system campuses. The main campus is getting half of that, $5 million per year. And we've made an investment in Regent Scholars as well as in our National Scholars Program, which includes our National Hispanic students. In addition, in response to the commission report, there was an additional, a little over $15 million in additional scholarship funds over the next 4 years that has been provided, again, going to some of these same programs. So we've been able to expand the resources that we're making available to students. And our Regent Scholars Program, where we normally would award between 750 and 850 students, for this coming fall, we're anticipating we're going to have 1,000 students in that program. And we were able to increase the dollar amount that those students are receiving from $5,000 per year to $6,000 per year. Similarly, on the National Hispanic Scholars, we were awarding that at about $3,500 per student. We were able to bump it to $4,000 last year and is now $6,000 going forward. So being able to increase the investment we're making in students and making A&M affordable for students that are receiving these scholarships. As I mentioned earlier, our retention rate, one of the things that has been important to us is closing the gap between our Hispanic students as well as our African-American students and the overall first year retention rate. And I'm happy to see that that gap has closed. It used to be between 4 and 5% of a difference. And now you can see it's a 1.4% difference between our Hispanic students and students overall. Obviously, the 4-year and 6-year graduations rates still have those gaps. But if that first year retention rate holds true over the next 4 years, you'll see those gaps close in the future. So very excited about that. And hopefully as we achieve the 95% mark, we will close that gap further. And then quickly on students that are, why aren't they coming to A&M? Those students that we admit, what is the, what are they telling us? We do survey the students every year to find out why are they not enrolling at A&M, or where do they get information, or who's helping them navigate the college process. And there's a couple of things that I'd just like to highlight. So you can see here, this is based on survey data from 1,877 total respondents. And of those, you can see the first generation numbers are important, particularly for Hispanic students, where at least in the survey data here, the number of students that were first generation represented just over half for our Hispanic population. Who are we competing against for students? No surprise really in all of this. Very similar institutions across the board, with our competitors over in Austin being at the top of everybody's list. The one institution that may surprise a few people is the University of Texas at Dallas. But they have been one of the more aggressive institutions in some of their scholarship offers and recruitment efforts. And so they have become a more significant player in recruiting of students and as a competitor for us. So where do students get their information? Not really surprising. Students do tell us they get information from their parents, from their high school counselors. You know, the high school counselor is one of the most important people for us to work with as we recruit Hispanic students. That is the number one place that they get information about college and where they find out about how to navigate the process of trying to enroll in higher education. This slide kind of shows you a little bit about, so the students who said, who we admitted and then ultimately said they were going to attend somewhere else and turned us down. One of the things that was important was trying to find out, well, were we their first choice and they turned us down, or were we not their first choice? And so I think it's really instructive here. So if you look at the students who we were their first choice, why would those students turn us down? Well, there are two issues that drive that. One is the competitiveness of any kind of financial aid offer they receive from us versus what they might have received from one of their other top choices. The other is whether or not they got into the major that they wanted. So the expansion of the number of students that we admit into business and engineering should help with those kind of numbers. That being said, my bigger concern is how do we influence students to where we're more students' top choice, not among the top choices, which you can see is the largest here. And that requires us to do more earlier outreach, earlier communication to students and trying to capture students earlier on in the process to build connections to the university. And so we are working to try to build some additional outreach programs here in the near future that should help that. And as I mentioned previously on working towards the becoming a Hispanic serving institution, that target of 25%, we were 24.9 last year. And so we're right on the cusp of achieving that 25% mark. Last, before I'll close to take any questions you have, for those of you who have not been on campus recently, again, we did open an innovative learning classroom building for the fall of 20. It was not quite the opening that we envisioned with the so many students taking classes remotely. But it is a building that was important for us to be able to offer more classes in a socially distanced environment. And we're really excited for this fall when we return to more normal operations to be able to fully use this facility. And so if you have an opportunity to come on campus and walk through this building, you can see some of the more modern style of classrooms that we have in which students are learning. And there are 3 arena style rooms in that building where the faculty members literally in the center of the room and surrounded on all sides by students. And it creates quite an engaging learning environment for the students and the faculty. So again, message, do well, do good. It's part of our effort to recruit students here. And we look forward to answering any of the questions that you may have.
Howdy, Joe. We do have some questions coming in from our audience. From Fabian Leon, he asks, how does the percentage of Hispanic students in our incoming class compare to the Texas high school graduating seniors Hispanic percentage? Our percentage keeps going up, but is it where it needs to be to reflect the state?
Yep. Great question. And the answer is it's not where it needs to be to reflect the state. And it is something that we continue to work on. The percentage of students that are graduating from Texas high schools is much higher than the 25%. So it is absolutely indicative of the work that we continue to do and need to do to increase the number of Hispanic students that are choosing A&M. And again, I go back to how do we become more of the first choice of students? And some of that has to be, we can't wait until their junior or senior year to recruit them. We have to change the perceptions earlier on in the process of enrolling students.
Thank you for that. Next question. This is from Michelle Mata, class of 20. How are the Hispanic and other minority students, especially first generation students, being supported and mentored during their college career? How can the Hispanic Network help?
Yeah, great question. So what do we do to support students? We could spend all day talking about all of the different programs and mechanisms that are in place to provide that support. But let me touch on just a few. In addition to all of the Hispanic student organizations that exist on campus that provide kind of that that fit for students, if you will, for being able to work through multicultural services and those kind of things. We also have a lot of academic support structures in place with learning communities. Some of you may be aware that we have a first year experience program called Hullabaloo U, which requires essentially every student to be enrolled in a small class their freshman year that connects them. The idea is to connect them with the campus, with the resources, with a small group of other students. And those groups those classes are formed around the idea of either their major or some sort of academic topic or some sort of affinity group that they are interested in being a part of. So that first year experience is one of the things that we point to when we look at why did the retention rate go up? Our engagement of students from that perspective. And then of course, we have a number of Hispanic students that are in the core. You'll hear from General Ramirez here in a little bit, and they provide tremendous support structures for students as well. So it really is everybody's got some level of support. So the question of what can you do? How can you engage? What I would encourage is, if there's a particular organization or group or on campus that you have an interest in perhaps helping with or being a part of, reach out to the leadership or work back through the Hispanic Network leadership. And we're more than happy. We're looking for former students or those that are just interested in engaging with us, looking for help to do that. And one area that we have had in the past and we're looking to perhaps put in place again is opportunities for our former students and even current students to be able to engage with prospective students in the recruitment process, to share a little bit about what your experience here was. We're looking for the unvarnished, not sugar-coated, just make it real, because we think that will actually attract and recruit students.
You speak to those student organizations, and if I could just interject, that's something to look forward to today. We are going to have a great student panel with several students representing some very dynamic organizations on campus. Well, we've got a few more questions here. We have, what is Texas A&M doing to recruit second and third generation Hispanic students that want to attend Texas A&M? It really appeared the focus this past year on first generation, but second and third generation applicants have likely already bought into Texas A&M and should be easier to recruit.
Yeah, so again, great question. While I probably emphasized a little bit too much some of the efforts that we have on first generation, we absolutely do have second and third generation students that are applying and are being recruited. And some of our scholarship programs, whether it's National Hispanic or the Century Scholars Program, as well as some of our other programs that we have, such as the Academic Achievement Scholarship Program, there are lots of resources that we are using to recruit. Obviously one of the things that is true about Texas A&M is that we do not use race in our admissions and scholarship decision processes. But that doesn't mean we're not sensitive to how are we recruiting and reaching out to students. So, obviously we're working with any student that we can in the recruitment process, and focus on trying to bring those second and third generation students. And that could be through engagement from the PSC. Obviously, somebody who's a second or third generation student, their family is probably bringing them to campus. So engaging in the with our visitor center and with the prospective student center here on campus as well is part of that.
From Mario Garza in Fort Worth, what do you see as the biggest challenge for improving retention rates?
The biggest challenge in improving retention rates. Well, again, let me point out that retention rate is now almost at 95%. So, you're talking about a very small gap that we're trying to address. But it boils down to ultimately, the biggest challenge is how do you identify the student who needs the help? And whether that's academic or social or mental health, whatever it might be that is presenting a challenge for that student in terms of being able to retain, how do we identify them early enough? Or how do they recognize that they need help and feel comfortable seeking that help? So one of the ways that we try to do something like that is make resources available closer to the college or closer to the student so that they can engage instead of having to go somewhere else to get help. The help comes to them, so to speak. But that's probably our single biggest challenge is really just helping the student feel comfortable being able to ask for help and then identifying those students early enough to be able to intervene to help them.
Thank you for that. Angela Lord asks, I did not realize that there was a Hispanic serving institution designation. Who are the other Texas universities or other competing universities that do have that designation?
Yeah, so a lot of institutions in the state have that designation. Many of them are regional institutions. Certainly every institution in South Texas, I think, has the designation as a Hispanic serving institution in terms of public universities. Outside of Texas, when we look at competitors and our peers, many of the University of California schools have that designation as a Hispanic serving institution. But many of the other ones that are quote unquote our peers do not. I mean, University of Michigan does not. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill does not. But it's primarily, and not surprising, that designation resides mainly in areas where there's a high population of Hispanic students.
Thank you. Besides the grades and scores that you discussed, has the criteria changed for freshman applications and the admissions and acceptance process?
The criteria, what we look at hasn't changed over the years. I mean, we continue to look from our holistic review process we've had in place now for quite some time. And we're looking for students that are well-rounded, that they are involved in different organizations, they're employed. Obviously one of the things that's important to us is what did you do with your free time? That free time looks different for different populations of students. Some students' free time is spent working because that's what they need to do in order to help support their families. Sometimes that free time is spent taking care of younger siblings because that's what they needed to do. So it really is looking at how students spend their time, what are they engaged in, and what are the opportunities that are available to them in order to do that. But we're looking for leadership skills. We're looking at awards. We're looking at what extracurricular activities they're involved in, their academics, the rigor that they've been exposed to. All of that has remained the same. What's changed is the competitiveness. The number of students who are applying and the quality of those students continues to increase every year.
Thank you for that. That was from Mike Garza. We've got a lot of Garzas represented here today. This is Jorge Garza asking, is there a population center or region that is not feeding an appropriate number of Hispanic students to Texas A&M? And what are we doing to focus efforts in these regions?
Yeah, so a great question. In terms of regions of the state, yeah, it's not really necessarily surprising if you look. The majority of the students are not majority, but the largest percentage of students are coming out of the Houston area, Dallas, Fort Worth area, San Antonio, Austin, Central Texas. Where I've always felt we have not been able to pull as many students here as we should is out of the valley. McAllen, Brownsville, even to a certain extent, Laredo, Corpus Christi, some of those areas, really that region south, I have felt we've not been able to pull the number of students. And obviously, y'all are aware, we have now the Higher Education Center in McAllen to try to go to them, so to speak, to build that, although we want students from the Valley to come here as well. I mean, it's not intended for them to be the only place to go. We want them to come to College Station. So that's an area where we continue to focus efforts, and we have a tremendous recruitment effort that takes place through the Prospective Student Center down in the Valley.
I'll add too that Texas A&M on their central social media just shared a really great story about Ring Day down there in McAllen, which was a fantastic a fantastic exhibition of that Aggie spirit making its way down there.
Yeah,
So
our first ever Ring Day at the Higher Education Center in McAllen.
it's going to send a nice trajectory for success for these families for sure. Okay, and I think this might be we've got two more questions here from Joseph Sanchez. In terms of students choosing TU over A&M, is there something specific as to why? Scholarships, academics, etc. As a follow-up, have you identified reasons that low income and minority students have lower matriculation rates than their white or higher income counterparts?
Yeah, so let me tackle the first question on the competitiveness with our peer institution over in Austin. In some cases, again, it goes back to they were the first choice for that individual student, and we weren't able to overcome that. In some cases, it's they got the major they wanted there, but they didn't get the major here because of some of the way in which decision processes are made, or because they have more capacity in some programs there than we do here, and vice versa. It's a complicated question, but it boils down to how do we help the student understand how this campus is a good fit for them, and for whatever reason, maybe it's because we didn't have enough financial aid on the table to compete with Texas, or it was their preference was Texas all along, and we weren't able to capture them early enough to get them to change their mind. I mean, so it's complicated with each student, and every student's decision-making process is something that we, in order to really understand and overcome, we have to work individually with them. And that's a challenge with the numbers of students that we're recruiting. And then there's a second part of that question.
Have you identified reasons that low income or minority students have lower matriculation rates than their white higher income counterparts?
Yeah, so a number of factors that go into that. Obviously, one is affordability, the financial aspects. While we have and do a lot to try to provide the financial resources to close the gap so that they can make those kind of decisions, the cost of somebody coming to College Station and incurring the costs of being here and having an apartment and those kind of things versus being able to stay close to home and perhaps even living at home still can be something for a low income family that's important for them to take into consideration, is that the leaving their family is not necessarily as easy of a decision because there are more complicated finances that can be involved.
And this is going to be our last question for Joe this morning. From Johnny Gonzalez, has there ever been any thought or consideration into hosting a recruitment or open house type event similar to Aggieland Saturday that targets Hispanic or Latino students and their parents, including sessions or presentations in Spanish? A substantial percentage of the Hispanic Latino students that are matriculating to Texas A&M are first generation, and I think it would be pivotal to host an event that would engage parents heavily, as they can sometimes be the barrier to their children going to college away from home.
Yeah, so that's a really great suggestion for us to consider something that's on a broader scale. I mean, we have small events that kind of speak to, bringing students and their parents to campus and being able to have some conversation with them. But, the idea of a larger scale event, I think is worth us exploring. I will say one of the things that we are doing this year for the first time with our financial aid offers is we have a video now going out to students and parents. And that video is going in both English and Spanish as a way to try to help answer some of those big financial concerns and sometimes fears that students have or parents have about the cost of higher education and how to afford it. And what does all these grants and loans and scholarships and what does all of it mean and being able to have that kind of conversation. So we are cognizant of that and needing to do more in that regard. But I love the idea of Aggieland Saturday focused on Hispanics.
Does the visitor center have Spanish language support for their tours?
They do. It's something that was important for us that we've been developing over the last year is to have some of our tour guides be bilingual and be able to provide tours in Spanish. So continue to work on that.
Thank you so much, Joe Pettibon. It's been our pleasure to get this information straight from you. So much valuable information that I know that our network can then share with their families that can hopefully be increasing those numbers, growing those numbers of future Aggies.
Yep. It's my privilege and I'm not hard to find. So if people have thoughts or ideas or questions as a follow-up, by all means, feel free to reach out to me.
Howdy. It is my honor and privilege to introduce the Commandant of the Corps of Cadets, Brigadier General Joe E. Ramirez, Jr., class of 79. He is a native of Houston. He's from the Barrios of Magnolia. He's the first member of his family to go to college. And when he got here, he joined the Fighting Texas Aggie Band. He graduated as a distinguished military graduate and then spent 31 years of exemplary military service in the United States Army. He's commanded soldiers around the world and served in leadership positions in various joint and operational commands. There's too many for me to list here. His numerous awards include the Distinguished Service Medal, the Defense Superior Service Medal, Legion of Merit, Korean Defense Service Medal, and Parachutist Badge. More importantly, in my opinion, than all these accolades is the commitment and love he has for his family. Those of us that know him, we know his father recently passed in August of 2020. He was a prisoner of war for 33 months and lived to tell about it and passed that knowledge on to us. So for that, we're very grateful. The military tradition in his family carried on with his two sons serving. And I'm sure it was harder for him to watch them go through than his whole career going through the Army. Together with Terry, they have 9 kids and 6 beautiful grandkids. Terry is equally sacrificed in the support of the family and General Ramirez's career. Ladies and gentlemen, General Joe E. Ramirez, class of 79.
Well, thank you, Roger. I greatly appreciate the introduction. And buenos dias. It's great to see everybody this morning. I'm honored to be here with you today and talk a little bit about the Corps, but also talk a little bit about Texas A&M and the impact that Hispanic students are having at Texas A&M today. Unlike any other time in this school's history, the impact we're having. I'll first start by saying that COVID-19 affected Texas A&M just like it affected the rest of the nation and the rest of the world. It affected us deeply starting about a year ago. You know, our cadets went off to spring break, and by the time they got back, their whole world had turned upside down. Everything was now online. Students were told they could go home and take all their classes from home. But probably what was the most difficult about that was the fact that we now could not conduct a lot of our most cherished traditions, both at Texas A&M and with the Corps of Cadets. And what that meant was our cadets missed out on a lot of the iconic traditions that are unique to the Corps and unique to Texas A&M University. And that included things like having an in-person Aggie muster. We had to do that virtual. March to the Brazos, which is a big event for the Corps cadets. It signifies the informal transition of leadership from this year's Corps to next year's Corps. We weren't able to do that because of COVID-19. And probably the biggest thing was final review, which is the culminating event for the Corps cadets, but more importantly, the culminating event for our seniors who've been in the Corps for 4 years. We weren't able to do that either. We tried to do all of that virtual. And while we felt good about the fact that we were at least able to recognize our cadets virtually, it was still tough not to be able to do it in person, because we all know how important those traditions are to our cadets and to our university. So we set about this summer planning on how we were going to have the Corps this year and not have to shut things down due to COVID-19. Took a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of coordination with many of the health agencies, both here on campus and in town. But we developed a policy letter, an addendum to the standard, which is our standard operating procedure for the Corps. And we presented that to the Corps leadership when they returned in August. And we basically put the onus on them and said, look, for us to ensure that we can continue to have a Corps and not have to shut things down due to COVID-19, we're heavily dependent on your leadership to ensure that we can do all this right and protect our cadets while still being able to have a Corps. And our cadets stepped up. They did a heck of a job throughout the entire school year. We're now in the final weeks of the school year, and the Corps cadets has been active that entire time. We've had cadets test positive. We've had our spikes of positive, but in every case, we took all the right measures. We put in the right protocols to ensure we could protect all of our cadets and ensure that everybody was safe throughout the school year. So to say it's been a challenging year is quite the understatement. But to also say that our cadets stepped up and did all the right things necessary to ensure we could have the Corps throughout the school year is also an understatement. We are extremely proud of the Corps leadership and what they did this year to ensure that we could have a Corps and do all the things that are unique to the Corps cadets throughout the school year. All of you out there that were once members of the Corps fully understand how important those are in establishing those memories and those friendships that are unique and iconic to the Corps cadets. So here we are. Just having finished family weekend, we conducted family weekend here at Kyle Field. We had a Corps march into Kyle Field on Friday evening, followed by an Aggie Band halftime performance on the field. And then we followed that up with announcing our major flag awards that evening. A big event attended by literally thousands of parents and family members that were able to come in. We could put them in Kyle Field, get the social distancing, and still allow them to be a part of that tradition. This coming weekend, coming week, we will celebrate Aggie Muster, both on campus and across the world, literally. And we look forward to being a part of that again this year. Probably our most cherished tradition, as everybody knows, but we're proud of the fact that we're going to be able to do it this year, despite the challenges that COVID-19 has presented. The following weekend, we're going to do March of the Brazos. The whole Corps is going to march out there. Separated by outfits, maintaining social distancing, but we're going to get a chance to do this one and do it right, but also do it safely. And then the following week, we're going to do final review on Kyle Field, again, where we can get our social distancing, but we're going to do it on Friday the 30th in Kyle Field. And again, say farewell to the seniors of the class of 2021 who've done such a phenomenal job this year of leading our Corps through a very challenging and difficult year. So a lot going on in our Corps that we're all very, very proud of, but even more importantly, looking forward to next year and hopefully getting some sense of normalcy brought back to campus and being able to do things again similar to the way we've done them in the past is very, very important to all of us. And we're setting the ground for that right now in working with next year's leadership and talking about how we can do this well and ensure we can do the core the way we want to do it, but also ensure the health and safety of all of our cadets throughout. Just some facts and figures here. We started the year at about 2,320 cadets, still a pretty large corps compared to what we've seen in years past. We were pleased with the fact that we were able to start that large. There was somewhat of a dip in our enrollment this year. COVID had a huge impact on us, but we're still proud of the fact that we started the year so large and we've been able to retain a large number of those cadets this year. And just so you know, from a demographic perspective, I've been the commandant now for 10 years. And when I started here back in 2010, the Hispanic population of the Corps Cadets was 13%. Today, we mirror the university in the fact that we are now 24% Hispanic in the Corps Cadets, something we're very, very proud of. And again, we see Hispanics represented in all the leadership positions across the Corps, something we're extremely proud of, and in leadership positions across campus. Again, something we're very, very proud of, and seeing our cadets get off the quad where the Corps lives and become leaders in other organizations across the campus, setting themselves up for success in the future as leaders in a wide variety of endeavors when they graduate. Just one example, Memo Salinas, who is the very first Hispanic yell leader we've ever had at Texas A&M University, a member of the Corps Cadets in Squadron 17, a phenomenal representative of our Corps and our university. He's going to do a great job as the head yell leader next year. We're proud of him, and we're proud of what he represents in our Corps. And he just represents one of literally thousands of young men and women out there of Hispanic descent that are doing extremely well here at Texas A&M University, that have the opportunity to succeed. And I listened to Joe Pettibon talk. And by the way, Joe Pettibon is one of our biggest advocates. He works hard to help us recruit for the Corps every year and looks hard to help us increase our population across the board, across all the demographics. But I listened to him talk about all the efforts they're putting forth out there to try to help us recruit across the board the state of Texas so that our university truly does reflect our state. And I will tell you, we're hand in hand with his team in doing that and trying to recruit across the board in the state of Texas. I will tell you that up until last year, due to COVID, I go to the Rio Grande Valley every year to recruit. Every year. Dr. Rita Hernandez, who is an Aggie, who was the superintendent of schools down in Brownsville, normally helps me out in setting up sessions with students down there in the valley to talk to them about Texas A&M and the Corps Cadets and getting them to come up here, see our campus and see the opportunities that we have available for them, because there's a lot of talent down there in the valley that we want to get up here to Texas A&M University to be a part of Aggie Land, but also to be a part of the Corps Cadets. I will tell you though, for all of you out there that have last names like mine, we have a responsibility among ourselves to help recruit for our great university. We all have a responsibility in that. And I will tell you, whether you are a current student or a former student, like it or not, you are now a role model for the Hispanic people and for our university. And we have a responsibility to go out there and talk to other young Hispanic men and women about Texas A&M and the opportunities available here at this great school, the opportunities afforded to many of us at a time when the population of Hispanics was not as big as it is now. And I think that if we continue those efforts, we'll see the population of Texas A&M continue to grow. We will become a Hispanic serving institution and be a source of pride among the Hispanic community out there across the state and across the nation. I will tell you that as I look at high schools across Texas, some of the hard facts are right now, we have a 40% dropout rate in the state of Texas. Hispanics have a 40% dropout rate. We have a responsibility to turn that around and change that across the state. If you are a young Hispanic male between the ages of 16 and 24, you stand a better chance of going to prison than you do of going to college. We've got to change that. We have a responsibility to change that in our state. And for me, as I go out and I recruit across the state of Texas, that's part of my message is finish high school, go to college, and watch the doors open up for you as you graduate from college and go out into the world to pursue a career in a wide variety of fields out there. And oh, by the way, as you look at colleges, come to Texas A&M and take a look at what we've got to offer you, your family, and your future being a Texas Aggie. So I tell you that because I take that very, very seriously. I spent 31 years in the United States Army. I was not here in Texas for much of that, but coming back now, having been a Hispanic here at Texas A&M University at a time when we made up less than 2% of the school's population, but still being proud of the fact that I was able to go through that experience, graduated, and went on to serve our country for 31 years. That's an opportunity I never would have gotten had I not attended Texas A&M University. And the friends I made here, the lifelong friends that I have made here, I never would have made had I not come to this great university and gotten the opportunities to participate in all those iconic traditions that I was able to with men and women that I didn't know before I got here. We owe it to these young people to talk to them about the opportunities that we've got resident here at Texas A&M University. This is a school for everybody. It doesn't matter what your background. This is a school for everybody. And I would encourage you to talk to the young people out there that you run across and talk to them about their opportunities here at Texas A&M University. I can promise you, we're all doing our part here at Texas A&M to try to get out and talk to young people about why Texas A&M is so important and why we are such a great school for people of all backgrounds, to include our Latino population. And before I go to questions, I just want to tell you a story that kind of brings all this together for us. My last job in the Army, I did strategy, plans, and policy for the U.S. government in Europe. And the great thing about that was I had served for 6 years in Europe back in the 80s during the Cold War, back when the Soviet Union was our biggest threat. You had West Germany, East Germany, the wall was up. And there was a significant threat there facing us. And oh, by the way, in the midst of all of that, we had battlefield tactical nuclear weapons. I was a 25-year-old captain in charge of tactical nuclear weapons in Europe. It baffles me now to this day to think of the responsibility we had back then in that environment. So being back in Europe now here in the early 2000s and having the opportunity now to travel to all those countries that were once part of the Soviet Union that were now part of Eastern Europe. And I mean, I traveled to them all, interfacing with them on behalf of the U.S. government. And that included Russia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, Turkey, all the Balkan countries of Bosnia, Kosovo, Serbia, Albania, Poland, Czech Republic, you name it. I was able to travel to all these countries and talk to them from a diplomatic perspective. Another country that I spent a lot of time in was Israel. Israel was part of our area of responsibility, and I worked a lot with them on their missile defense capabilities, specifically against Iran. And so the U.S. had a tight partnership with Israel, we still do, in helping them develop a missile defense infrastructure that could protect them against missiles coming out of Iran. So I was going to Tel Aviv for a meeting with the Israeli Defense Force, their senior leaders, and the NATO commander, who was my boss, he was a Navy 4-star at the time, called me and said, I need you to stop into Cyprus and check in on an Air Force squadron we've got there. I want you to check in, see how they're doing, and make sure everything's going okay. And I said, yes, sir, I will. And if you know where Cyprus is, it's an island in the Mediterranean, not too far from Italy and Greece. So I fly into Akrotiri, Cyprus, and I land my plane. I get out, and there's a van there, and there's an Air Force lieutenant colonel there to greet me. And he puts me in the van, and I've got with me my Israeli desk officer, who is my Israel expert, who travels with me whenever I'm going to Israel. So we go to this British air base there on Cyprus, where, unbeknownst to me, we have a squadron of U-2 spy planes that fly out of this air base. And so I spend the day getting all these briefings and checking out all the facilities on the capability of this aircraft and what it does. Now, this aircraft flies 70,000 feet above the earth. It's way, way up there. The pilot literally has to wear a spacesuit because he's so far above the earth, he's got to breathe oxygen. And there are less than 100 of these pilots in the entire world, a very highly specialized field. So I'm getting all these briefings and learning about this aircraft, watching some of the videos of the video they take. And it's getting later on in the day. My desk officer comes up and says, "Sir, we've really got to get going soon. We've got to fly to Tel Aviv for some meetings." And so the squadron commander said, sir, I'll tell you what, let's go out to the tarmac. We've got a plane that's been up for about 9 hours. Let's go out there. It's getting ready to land. You can watch the plane land and then we can leave. I said, okay, sounds good. So we go out to the tarmac. It's dark now. And I'm looking up at the sky, and sure enough, you can see those lights coming in, and the lights get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as that aircraft comes in. That aircraft comes in, it lands, it coasts to a stop. The canopy pops open. The pilot jumps up and in his spacesuit, and he walks down the ramp and walks into this little building where they do his debriefing. So the squadron commander says, sir, come on, we'll go through that building and we'll escort you out. I said, great. So I walk in the building and I'm standing there and I'm watching this pilot who he's got a bevy of people all around him and they're taking his suit off and he's talking to him and everything. And by now my desk officer's like, sir, we've really got to go. So I start shaking hands with everybody to say goodbye. And as I'm walking out the door, I hear, hey, sir. And I turn around and look, and there's the pilot. Giggle. I saw the ring. So of course, I've got to turn around to say hello to this guy. And by now, my desk officer's doing cheetah flips because he's just certain we're going to miss our plane. And I said, hold on a second. There's a fellow Texas Aggie. Let me go say hello to this guy. It'll take me 2 minutes. Well, 20 minutes later, we finished talking and we spent that entire time talking about Texas A&M and our time at Texas A&M. And, you know, what outfit were you in? What dorm did you live in? Do you remember doing this? Did you know this guy? Just talking about being at Texas A&M University and what it meant to us. Here are two military officers halfway around the world from our home. And we're not talking about the military or our careers or geopolitics. We're talking about Texas A&M University and our time there as Texas Aggies. We spent we spent 15 minutes talking about Texas A&M University. We spent 5 minutes talking about how far more qualified we were to coach the football team than the coaches were. How if the coaches would just listen to us, the team would go undefeated every year and we'd be national champs year after year. But we spent all this time talking about Texas A&M University. And it was special to run into a fellow Aggie halfway around the world and get a chance to just reminisce and talk about all those good times spent here at College Station. So I finally say my goodbyes and I'm walking out of the building, and my desk officer, who, by the way, great officer, West Point graduate, phenomenal young man. And he goes, what is it about you Aggies, man? He said, every time you guys get together, it's like a family reunion because you have your own language. You've got your own secret handshake. You've got your own secret decoder ring. Because what is it about you Aggies that every time you get together, you guys got to have this huddle and it's like a big family reunion? And I looked at him and I said, you will never know. You'll never know because you've never been to Texas A&M University. You've never been to that university where only we who have experienced what it means to be a Texas Aggie can understand, you know, that unique bond and brotherhood that we enjoy because we've lived the same experiences. We speak the same languages. Until you've stood in the blazing hot sun at Kyle Field and it's the fourth quarter and your team is down 63-0, but you're still there because the 12th man never leaves its team, you'll never know. Until you've been to midnight yell practice with 50,000 of your closest friends waiting for the lights to go out so you can hopefully do a lot of what you'll be doing a lot of the next day, you'll never know. Until you've been to that great study hall on the north end of campus known as the Dixie Chicken and sampled one of their beverages, you'll never know. Until you've been to Silver Taps on Academic Plaza at 10:30 at night on the first Tuesday of every month and listen to those bugles play that mournful taps in honor of a student that has died the previous month, you will never know. And until you've been to Aggie Muster and answered here for a fellow student who has died during the year, you will never know. Only those of us that have been to Texas A&M and lived those traditions can understand what it means to be a Texas Aggie. And that's why it's so special to us to run into another fellow Aggie no matter where we are in the world. And I told him, there's a line in our alma mater that goes, we are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be. And That means a lot to us. We take that seriously because it doesn't matter where we are in the world. If you run into a fellow Aggie, you've got a friend, a brother, a sister, somebody you can count on if you need them. That's how close the bond is between those of us that wear this ring, that we all wear the same ring. And I told him, I have held Aggie muster in the Al Anbar province of Western Iraq with one other Aggie. And why? That's who we are. That's what we do. That's what Texas Aggies are known for. That is what we do. Name another school on the planet where all of its graduates gather together on the same day every year. Doesn't matter whether you're in a small town, a big city, on board a ship, or on a combat outpost. You gather together the same day every year to remember Aggies that have fallen during the year and answer here for them. Name another school on the planet that does that. It doesn't exist. Only at Texas A&M University. And I told him, I said, you know, there's just something special about being an Aggie and running into fellow Aggies around the world that just draws us together so that we can talk a little bit about those great times we shared together way back when on that campus in College Station. And I tell you that because at a time right now where the rest of the world seems bent on tearing itself apart, we as Aggies have got to remember that we are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be. And we've got to be an example for others to show them how we stay united. We don't have to agree on everything. Disagreement is okay, but no matter what, first and foremost, we're Aggies. We wear the same ring. We share the same experiences. We love the same things. We revere our iconic traditions. You know, we can never forget that as Aggies, we have a responsibility to ensure that we never lose that we never lose that sense of we are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be. So I would offer that as you go out there among your fellow Aggies and others, that you show them what right looks like in the fact that we as Aggies, who in a week are going to remember Aggie muster and remember those who have fallen, that we never forget where we came from in this beautiful campus here at College Station. And we never forget what it means to wear this ring and what it means to sing that alma mater, where the words include, we are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be. Well, I thank you for your time. I'm open for any questions if there are any.
Wow, it feels like you should be dropping a mic right now. But we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
What a nice reminder you are for all of our people that are not on campus. You are reminding us what it was like to be on campus. So we have two questions. The first one is, can you speak to the Corps' goals in terms of women in the Corps, grades, GPAs? We know that there's several metrics that you can measure in terms of growth. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure, that's a great question. I apologize. I should have brought that up before as I talked to demographics. For example, women, you know, when I got here, women were 9% of the Corps. Today, they're 17%. My goal would be to get to at least 20%, which puts us even with the academies. Some of the academies are more, some are a little bit less, but generally speaking, we're at around 20%. We already exceed the population of women in the military, which we're proud of. If we're going to grow the Corps, that's the population we've got to target the hardest, to try to get women to come and join our Corps. And we've made great progress, but we've got a long way to go yet. The same thing with African Americans. You know, we have not grown the African American population significantly. We sit at about 3 to 3.5% African Americans. I'd like to get that population up so that it more reflects our state. So we are constantly out there trying to recruit various populations across the state so that our Corps does better reflect our state and our nation with respect to its demographics. So our goal is to increase those numbers every single year. From an academic perspective, my first semester here as the commandant, the Corps posted an overall grade point average of 2.6, which quite frankly, I thought was pretty good because we didn't see grades like that when I was here. But when you looked at it compared to the university's overall grade point average at that time was a 2.9. We were lagging far behind the rest of the university, and quite frankly, did not enjoy a very good reputation among the staff and the faculty and the administration for being devoted to academics. So we had to change that. So over the last 10 years, we have changed that completely. Academics is our number one priority. I devote a lot of resources to ensuring that we can help our cadets succeed academically, to include, we have 4 brand new leadership learning centers that are like mini libraries right there on the quad, devoted for cadets to be able to go and study and get tutoring. I provide about $40,000 out of my budget every year to provide tutors for the cadets, primarily for the freshman cadets and some of the toughest subjects out there like calculus, chemistry, physics, biology, engineering, math, so that we can help them succeed, especially through that first year. So we've devoted a lot of time and effort to academics across the board. This past semester, despite COVID-19, the Corps' overall grade point average was a 3.2. So we've come a long, long way with respect to academics. And quite frankly, you know, our young men and women coming into Texas A&M today are smarter than anything I have ever seen before. I'll tell you this, I'm thankful that the same academic standards they have today were not around back when I applied to A&M, because I never would have gotten in. These are smart young men and women, and they're the right kinds of young men and women that we need for today's environment, for the world we live in today. So academically, we have come a long, long way, and I'm very, very proud of our cadets for the success they've shown.
We've got time for maybe a few more. So this one comes from Jose Luis. I think you know this guy.
I do.
How can first-generation Hispanic students create a family away from home while still experiencing the systemic barriers associated with culture shock, financial struggles, and limited networking skills?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jose, because it is a challenge. It is a challenge. I grew up in inner city Houston, a barrio, all Hispanic, all Latino. And so coming to Texas A&M in the mid 70s, where there were very few Latinos, was a real culture shock for me, quite frankly. It was a tough transition for me, and there were many times I wanted to quit. And I'm grateful that I had parents that encouraged me and said, you know, don't quit, stick it out, because I was the first member of my family to go to college, and their whole dream for me was to be the first member to graduate and finish college. It's a tough transition, but I will tell you, Joe Pettibon talked about, there are many resources available on campus to help our students coming in that may not be used to this kind of an environment. There are many, many resources available to you, everything from the Committee for the Awareness of Mexican American Culture to the Multicultural Services Center, the Corps Cadets. I mean, we provide a wide variety of support systems. I mentor 2 Hispanic students every year. That's, I signed up for that when I first got here, and I have 2 students. And what's great about that is you get to watch them progress from very scared, timid, frightened freshmen to very confident young men and women ready to take on the world when they leave here. As a matter of fact, timing is great. I just had one of them stop by earlier this week, and she just got accepted to graduate school and came in choked up to tell me about it, and was very, very proud of the fact that she had gotten into grad school. And I remember her, 4 years prior, where she wasn't certain if she could make it to next week. So there are many, many resources available. I will tell you 2 things. Avail yourself of the resources, but also don't be afraid to get out there and meet others. Don't be afraid to assimilate. Don't be afraid to get out there and become a part of this experience. Do not miss out on the opportunity to experience Texas A&M and all the things that we are known for. Because I'm telling you, one of these days you will find yourself in Akrotiri, Cyprus, and you're going to run into another Aggie, and trust me, you're going to talk about all the experiences you had here that we all share. Don't miss out on those opportunities. Don't sequester yourself somewhere where you don't get the opportunity to participate.
All right, I think this will be the last one. Being from the RGV, it's great that we have some folks tuning in from down there. I know how strong the TU foothold is because many of the Valley kids grow up cheering for the Horns, even though their parents are not even alumni. How do we effectively start to gain traction in the RGV?
No, that's a great question because it is tough. I tell you, two places where it's really tough: the RGV and El Paso. UT has a strong foothold there. Um, I will remind you that we do have Prospective Student Center down in the RGV, and we've got a representative from A&M, the A&M admissions office now in El Paso. So yeah, it's tough to do, but it can be done. I will tell you that about 2 years ago, 3 of our major unit commanders were from El Paso, 3 of them. And this was due to our recruiting efforts going out there. But, you know, there was a time when less than 2% of our cadets in the Corps were from El Paso. Now our population has grown significantly because of our recruiting efforts. A lot of it has to do with educating our young people on what we've got available here. Texas has a stronghold on there because they got there before us. That doesn't mean that we can miss out on that opportunity. We've got to get down there and start talking to these people, talking to high school counselors, talking to people like Rita Hernandez, who have an influence down there, and talk to them about the opportunities we've got available up here at Texas A&M University. My first year here, I went down there, and I still remember my secretary asking me, "Why are you going to the Rio Grande Valley?" The previous commandants haven't done that. And I said, because there's a lot of talent down there that we need to go out and recruit and bring up here to Texas A&M University. And we've had success with the Corps in doing that. But, you know, we can never be satisfied. We've got to go down there and have a heavy influence, not just on the students, but also on their parents. Because when you go to the RGV, especially when you're talking about recruiting young Latinas to come up here, some of those fathers do not want to let their daughters go that far. They think it's a long, long way away. So it's a challenge, but not one we can't overcome. I truly believe we can make inroads down in the Rio Grande Valley, just like we have in other places.
So what I'm hearing, General Ramirez, is this is a charge. This is our job to continue to tell that story because there's a ripple effect that we can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We all have a responsibility in this. And again, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you're a current student, former student, where you are, what you do, we all have a responsibility for getting out there and telling people about Texas A&M and the opportunities available here, especially for our young Hispanic students that may not understand or may not know what's going on. I always tell young men and women when I'm recruiting, come to Texas A&M and see the campus, talk to the students, see what we've got to offer here. And then at least you can make an informed decision. Because in my humble opinion, if we can get them up here to College Station, we've set the hook. Now it's up to us to reel them in, but at least getting them up here to the campus, we've set the hook on them. And I can tell you, we have great success when we get them here and let them see the campus, talk to the students, and see the opportunities available to them here. We all have a responsibility in doing that. We all have a responsibility in talking to them about we are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be. Thank you very much for the opportunity. God bless each and every one of you and beat the hell out of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you so much, General Ramirez. For 10 years, you've been a staunch ally of our organization, and we can't thank you enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always an inspiration to our group and has been a friend since he set foot on the campus years ago. So thank you again, General Ramirez, for your remarks. Before we go into our next panel discussion, I just would like to do another little commercial for the Texas A&M Hispanic Network. We really would like to have you all be involved in our network activities. There's lots of ways to be engaged. You can volunteer as a chapter member. And again, I ask you guys to take a look at tamhn.aggienetwork.com. You'll see chapters all across the state. General Ramirez mentioned El Paso and RGV. We've got representation down there. We're looking for leadership in the Rio Grande Valley. So we'd love, if you've got interest in doing that, we'd love to have you contact the A&M Network, the Hispanic Network, to sign up for that. So please take a look at our website. We've got some great information. And of course, the ability to become a member And again, all funds for membership dues go to scholarships in the local chapters. So again, please take a look. And if there are any questions, there's ways to contact us through the website. So thank you again. I want to transition to our student panel discussion. We've got representation from several Hispanic student organizations. I'd like to introduce them both. Carlo Chunga Pizarro is a first-generation graduate from Piura, Peru. He holds a BS in Urban and Regional Planning and a GIS. He serves as the Latinos and Planning Division Treasurer of APA representative for the Association of Student Planners, and advisor to the TAMU Latinx graduation ceremony. Currently, he's pursuing a master's in urban planning with a focus on disaster recovery. And in the fall, and I think this is a recent acceptance, so congratulations to Carlo. He will be attending the University of California, Irvine's PhD program in urban and environmental planning and policy. Also joining us is Alexander Medina. He's a first generation student from the class of 2022 from Pharr, Texas, also Rio Grande Valley. Alexander is studying business management and entrepreneurship. Alexander is a current vice president of the Hispanic President's Council, and he serves as a mentor for 4 undergraduate students in the Latino Males United, or LMU, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, ALPHA, and the Vamos chapter of Texas A&M. So we're happy to welcome them as a panel discussion. We actually had a third speaker who was unable to join us today, but in the true 12th man spirit, Carlo will be speaking on his behalf. So thank you again. And I'd like to turn it over to our panel discussion panelists. I'll start with Alexander and move on to Carlo and ask you guys to talk a little bit about the organizations that you represent.
Hello. Good morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. As you may know, my name is Alexander Medina. So I am the vice president of the Hispanic President's Council. And what HPC does is that we aim to serve as a leadership avenue for the Latinx students here on campus. Not only that, but we seek to celebrate Latinx culture through our various events that we host the fall and spring semesters. To add to that, we seek to advocate for the betterment of the Latinx community here on campus, and we strive to provide the best for our community.
My name is Carlos Chunga, and I'm representing 2 organizations today. I help with the Latinx Center proposal that we've been working on for a long time now, and I will be talking a little bit more about that later. But the other organization that I'll be representing today is the Latinx graduation ceremony, which I was part of the founding group that created that about 2 years ago. And we basically hold a celebration of first-generation Latinx students in a bilingual setting to invite parents to truly understand what it means to be an Aggie in their own language.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we were hearing both Joe Pettibon and General Ramirez talk, one of the things that brings Latinx students to Texas A&M is a feeling of belonging and feeling of welcoming. Can you talk a little bit about how each of your organizations helps do that for new Aggies?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I'll go first. So with HPC, what we do is that we create different events for the Latinx community to come together and celebrate. So for example, when I was a freshman, I was scared to be on campus. My first date went horrible. And thanks to HPC, I found a light and I found a community here. We host Bienvenidos to Aguiland, which is an event where Latinx students come together and they showcase their orgs. And through there, I was able to make so many friends and find so many organizations that I became part of. So what HPC does pretty much is that we welcome students to get involved and to find others like them so they don't feel left out.
For the Latinx Center, right now, still an idea, not a fresh idea because it's been talked to us about for a very long time. I'll never forget the first time this idea was brought up to us. Some of you might know Dr. Edward Murguia, who's a retired faculty now, but I'll never forget the day he took us out to lunch one day and said, wouldn't it be great if there's one organized place where you can find all the resources when it comes to Latinx students, your network, mentorship, and things like that. So through there, we took that seed of thought and we began drafting a proposal to talk to faculty, to talk to higher admin about this idea of bringing together the entire Latinx community in a geographic location on campus. That would bring together mentorship, scholarship. It would bring together community in this cultural space where we could enrichly learn about the cultural environment, about being a Latinx student. uh, not also A&M, but throughout the entire world, to understand what it means to be a Latinx, to study that, to build upon that. And that's what the center would mean. One of the first ideas that came out of that was the celebration of the Latinx graduation ceremony that we're hosting next month, actually, the third one. The second one was supposed to be 2 semesters ago, but of course, COVID didn't allow us to do that. But we were able to do a virtual one in the fall, and we did an in-person one in 2019. But what this does is all of us are celebrating graduation. It's an important time. A lot of us are first generation students, and we want to truly embody that all of the sacrifice that not only that we made, but that our parents made. And so through the ceremony is this space that we made for ourselves, where we invite the parents to understand what it means to be an Aggie, so they can understand what we went through for the last 4, 5, 6, even 6 years in Aggie land. And doing that, and by saying that in Spanish, it invites them by putting up shows, putting up the Aguilan Mariachi. We'll always invite them. We'll have the Ballet Folklorico this year. That really invites the families that aren't from Aguilan to really understand and feel welcome in this space that we called home, but now we also want them for them to feel like home.
Great, that's fantastic. We attended the Bienvenidos a Aguilan a couple of years ago for the first time, and I was in absolute awe of just the energy, the excitement, and just the level of engagement from all of the students. And it attracted people from all kinds of Aggies to come check it out, see what it was like. And so I really applaud you all for doing that, hosting that, and promoting that. That's just such a wonderful event. As you're a part of student organizations and you're seeing students come up through your organizations and welcoming them onto campus, what are some of the biggest concerns or issues that you think are facing Hispanic Latinx students today coming on campus for the first time?
So I can talk about this first. It's hard for first generation students. Well, first of all, first generation students normally don't have a network already coming into campus. A lot of times we have to create that network within the first 2 years, even 4 years that we're here, and it can be very taunting, very nervously to go up to somebody and ask for mentorship and ask for all these different things, and that makes it even harder to find a job afterwards or to even think about their graduate school. And so one of the biggest issues that I see is the ability of a Hispanic first generation student to create that network and where to find the resources to get one. Right now, they're sporadically throughout all of campus, and our campus is so large that sometimes you don't know where to look. And so if we could have that all in one location, this student will be able to find that network, create it, and then also be ready for whatever happens after they graduate. Because there's so many students that I see still continue to struggle to find something to do afterwards. And our parents sometimes cannot help us do that. And, it's real the way it works today. It's really hard to find that network, but with the ability to have a space where we can find that, it will really help them out in the long run and also help them out, mentor the next generation of students that seek to find the same networks.
Yeah, to add what Carlo was saying, I agree with him. Like for me, it was like I came to college and I didn't know what the big four of business were. I didn't know like what a mentor was, to be honest. And for first generation students, it's kind of hard like finding a mentor just because like nobody tells you how. We don't have like the resources available to us. Like, oh yeah, like my dad knows this guy who works here. Like he can talk to you. Like I never had that, and I don't think like I will ever will. But to add to what Carlo was saying, I also think that we lack what we want to do after the future, planning for a future, like how to negotiate our salary, how to start investing, how to start saving. I think there's like a general lack of knowledge in the Latinx community on that. And not many other groups of students liking that, but I think we do it just because our parents they're not used to that. And I think that has to change within the 5 years at A&M. Like I have a dream that one day, like people here at A&M, we have like a large extension of mentors for the Latinx community, because I think that's going to help a lot and it's going to expand A&M as a university.
Yeah, Alex. And on top of that, like being a Latinx students, we're historically marginalized. And one of the things that we talk about with graduation is it was really the first time when we started it. It was the first time a lot of us, the presidents and people who hold those positions from Latinx organizations got together to talk about what we went through every year as facing other leadership and facing other faculty or staff members who see our ideas and think of them as dumb or something that couldn't be done. So we see a lack of cultural and sensitive programs, and sometimes we see underrepresentation in higher education. And sometimes we face even a lot of the isms, racism, sexism within the classroom, and we don't know who to turn to. Sometimes we're lucky enough to have that mentor or faculty that can help us out, but not everybody is so lucky to have the space to talk to someone about that. And hopefully, with the center and having a place of celebration of all the graduates, we can talk about what it was like to be in that spaces, but also help each other rebuild ourselves, get prepared for the next stage of our lives, but also be there for one another, sort of talk to each other, because only we know what it was like to face those isms in the classroom, or even in certain events where we see that happening to ourselves or to other students.
What I heard from both of your remarks there, I heard a challenge for some of our former students to get involved and to help. And this is where, as former students, we really have got an obligation. And Alexander, you and I had a great meeting not too long ago where we're going to collaborate with the Texas A&M Hispanic Network and the Hispanic Presidents Council to provide some assistance in that space of really helping graduate as we get first generation students becoming first generation professionals who need that kind of guidance, that mentorship, assistance with things as simple as, 401k and insurance. And those are things that, maybe our parents didn't have that kind of information to be able to provide. And we've got a former student network that's deep in knowledge and passion around helping students. So we've got a great way to engage with you all, and we promise to do that with you. And so we're really excited for the collaboration that I see in the future for our organizations together. So thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit about student advocacy. And when we were preparing for this not long ago, I was curious if you guys, in your short time, when you think about the time that you're spending on campus, 4 or 5, maybe 6 years, how have you seen that grow and change just in your time here at Texas A&M? Because I have a feeling it's moving at a exponential clip than what we even saw decades before. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. So of course we always look at our antepasados, the previous people who did all the things to make A&M a cultural and inviting place. For example, I know MSC Scola was a place that was run by students and then created into the MSC. And there has been so many other organizations that has done the same thing, like KMAG. But now with the social media aspect to living as a student, it's becoming more adamant that there's a lot more to do and a lot different more ways to get more students involved in these different fights to create this place a more inclusive place. And so I've seen it grow tremendously with a lot of more advocacy, a lot of more protests on campus to protect students, to really fight for those resources. And I know I always I look at the former students who took on the fight first, and we always look up to them because they were the first ones who did it. And now we're taking on that mantle to really grow numbers in leadership positions on campus. We're still seeing many first Hispanic student body president, first Hispanic Yale leader this past year, as General Ramirez mentioned. And we're going to continue to see that throughout the next 10 years or so. But it's grown to a level that we couldn't imagine it. It's going to continue to grow as more students come into the campus, as more students become involved, and as they become more involved with the student organizations that can make that happen for them.
Yeah, like Carlos said, as more students embrace their culture, A&M is going to grow. And like people like him have made it grow. Like from my freshman year to my junior year today, like I seen a great amount of growth within like the Latinx community, and people like him make it possible. Like I know for a fact that there's like more than 40 Latinx organizations on campus. There's more than 30 Latinx events per year on campus, and we keep growing. Like we're going on a great pace, and we need y'all to help us out here because we're gonna make a change, and it's about to happen.
That's great. I hope the former students that are joining us heard that. You said over 40 Latinx organizations on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Think about when, you were there as former students and how many were there at the time and just how much that's grown and changed. And the leadership from students like yourself are driving that. So thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit about maybe some critical thinking around some of the organizations. So uh, um, a critic might say that Latinx graduation or even the Latinx Center, is that promoting more differentness versus sameness? And how do you guys address that kind of line of questioning?
Yeah, that's always the first question that we get when they ask us, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that stuff? But there's been studies that have shown that it's important for us to celebrate as a community together. Like, a lot of people wouldn't really understand what it's like to be in our shoes. Our brown skin sometimes makes our experience different at Texas A&M, and we think that it's a good thing to celebrate just with our community, with things that we're familiar with music that we're familiar with images that we're familiar with. Those things really brings us together, more than it divides us, to be honest. And the people who say that it divides us and all this stuff, you're invited to come too. It doesn't mean that you're excluded from attending a certain event. You're more than invited to come and learn, because we want you to learn what it's like to have the experience. We don't want you to just say, sorry, you go through this and all this stuff, but we really want you to learn so you can see what we experienced for the last 4 or 5 years in this campus. And we really want to resonate that no matter what happens, no matter what we went through, we will continue to cross the stage at the end of the line. But let us celebrate too, because it was a long struggle to get to where we are right now.
Great. Alexander, a question for you as a leader within the Hispanic President's Council. What kind of drew you to being involved? We hear studies will say, Joe Pettibon, General Ramirez, all said that engagement in student organizations really is what clenches retention, really, at Texas A&M. And so what drew you to be a part of it? And tell us a little bit about your growth experience just as a result of being a part of an organization.
Okay. So being 6 hours away from home was tough because I came here alone without my parents. My parents have never been to the A&M campus. So I felt scared because I didn't know no one. I was here alone. And honestly, I was trying to find people I could relate to, someone I could talk to, that was like me. So that was the first thing that led me to go to Bienvenidos Aguiland, where I got to meet a lot of student organizations. Through there, I got to learn about the Hispanic President's Council, Latino Males United, and the Association of Latino Professionals for America. And that's where encontré mi casita. I was like, ya está. That's where I found it. And what motivated me to go for leadership positions in these 3 different organizations was that I could help others like me. I could help students that were like me. I could help them lessen the burden they had and the one I had. Not only that, but I also found my little home away from home, and I wanted to grow it. I wanted to invite people to my family, to feel welcome, to celebrate. And also the leadership potential, the ability to make a change in the community and the ability to change one, that motivated me to apply for different leadership positions and strive to become the best I can be every day.
I think you embodied all of the core values and just everything that you said. So that's wonderful. I wanted to ask too, from both of you, we've got a great audience of folks today joining us virtually, most of which are former students. What are some ways that the Hispanic Network can help, both in terms of the Hispanic Aggie experience on campus and beyond?
Yeah, one of the first things, as the Hispanic former students, you all are the kind of the person that lets the former students know what's going on within our community. So definitely continuing to let them know what's going on, what are the in the community right now, what are the struggles that we're going with, but always keeping a connection with the current student population here, because a lot of times it can be very, a lot of stuff can be happening so fast and so much, but as long as we have the connection, as long as we have that friendship going and all this, to really let the former students know what's going on, how the community has changed throughout the years, it could really help us out, because the network is so large that one former student can be like, oh, I know how to fix that problem, and they will come out and fix it, not fix it, but help us out in some way. And that will be through y'all. They will find that out through the Hispanic Network. And that's the best way to use our resources to the best potential, by letting everybody know what's going on, what's happening and how we can truly come together to find a solution to the whatever struggle that we see that's happening in the school.
Yes, very good.
I will also say to please follow us on social media. Social media has been changing the world, and I feel like if you are able to follow us on social media and see what we're up to, you can maybe be proactive and join in our events, help us like volunteer, talk to us, and be a mentor for our students. I think like if we start with social media first, we can grow from there.
Yeah, I like to remind Porter Gardner from the Association of Former Students that the Hispanic Aggies are the fastest growing segment of the Association of Former Students. There are over 20,000 graduates living in Texas today that identify as Hispanic. And so we have got a huge resource for you all, and one that we could certainly help while you're here and after when you're ready to graduate. We've got a little bit of time for Q&A. I did get a couple of questions here. How does one get involved in the coordination and planning of the Latinx graduation ceremony?
Well, so right, I can't think of the website on top of my head, but we do have a website. We do have an email. If you find us on social media, you can go to we have links to our email there, and you can send an email and any questions you have to see how you can support us financially or with resources or anything like that. That would be very helpful. If you want to answer, I can look up the email real quick.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, and just for the folks joining virtually, we'll be including those links on our website as well,
Yeah.
so that people
Okay,
can
that helps us out either way.
have access to that. No, that's fantastic. A question from an anonymous attendee. What is the most rewarding experience that you guys have felt personally from empowering Hispanic students? That's a good question. And one, given the things that you've been advocating for and, as in a leadership role too, what might kind of embody the most rewarding part of that for you?
I've already seen Alex up here with
Oh.
me. I remember Alex when he was a freshman. You might not know, but I remember you seeing that like all of those events. But a lot of the times you see someone that's a freshman being really shy, not know how to talk to people, or even to be in a panel, really. And it's the organizations where they really find that confidence they need to successfully talk to people and be in panels and be a speaker at different events. And seeing people like Alex now be out here and represent his community and really embody what it means to be an Aggie. It's really powerful to me to see him grow, and all the other students that I've mentored in the past and I've seen being mentees, seen them grow and become grad students, PhD students. It's really heartwarming for me to see that.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. No, I agree with Carlo too. It's really nice seeing like somebody that you mentored to grow, and like you plant a seed and then you watch the tree grow and blossom. That's what happened to me too for the Hispanic President's Council in Latino Males United and in Alpha. I'm a mentor in those organizations, and just seeing like what my mentees are accomplishing is just like beautiful to see. It's like, wow, like, I was in that spot and now I'm helping them, and like they're growing and they're going to do the same. It's going to keep the cycle going. And it's just like really nice seeing that like it's going to be payoff.
That's fantastic. We want to thank you both so much for your involvement today in the panel discussion. You shared some really great points. As a network, we are so very proud of all the work that you've done, and I hope you see it as a commitment from us as former students to continue to support you all, again, while you're here on campus and as you graduate. So look for more on collaboration with us. And again, thank you very much for all that you're doing on campus. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you, everyone.
I'm going to turn it over to our summit chairperson, Tamara Garza, who will be introducing our next speaker.
Wow, I just have to say that's incredible energy to see from, those are just two student leaders, but I think they represent so much of where the university is going. So, and I really hope that energy kind of translated across in our virtual audience. So moving on to our last speaker for the day before our business meeting. Born and raised in Brownsville, Texas, Felipe Hinojosa received his PhD from the University of Houston in 2009 and joined the faculty here that same year. His research areas include Chicana-Chicano studies, Latina-Latino studies, American religion, race and ethnicity, and social movements. In addition to serving as the director of the Carlos Cantu Hispanic Education and Opportunity Endowment, Professor Hinojosa serves as editor for the interdisciplinary, peer-reviewed, and online moderated forum Latinx Talk. Now, it's a great treat to have him here today. Dr. Hinojosa is a friend of our organization, and what I like most about him is his very authentic, staunch advocacy for the Hispanic and Latinx students here on this campus. As a matter of fact, I know he served as a mentor and advisor to the student leaders and organizations that we had represented today. So his new book, Apostles of Change, Latino Radical Politics, Church Occupations, and the Fight to Save the Barrio, is set in 4 major cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and Houston, where in 1969 and 1970, Latino radical activists clashed with the religious leaders as they occupied churches to protest urban renewal, poverty, police brutality, and racism in the late 1960s and early 70s. I share this with you because his interest in these clashes, lucky for us, has created a magnet of sorts for more interesting stories to unfold. He's here today to share one of his stories that I think will resonate with our audience today. Take it away, Dr. Hinojosa.
So thank you very much for having me here this morning. I'm a little nervous because, I'm still trying to get used to all of this, giving talks on Zoom and so forth, but it's a real honor for me to be here this morning. And just want to thank everybody who helped organize this and put it all together. I'm assuming I can use this remote to go to the next slide and all that. Okay, fantastic. So let me just jump in because this is a passion project of mine. As Tamara mentioned, I am from the Rio Grande Valley. I was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas. And so this particular story, I think, carries a lot of weight for me and certainly for people from the Rio Grande Valley, but I think it speaks to sort of our larger movements for social justice and educational equity, not only across the state of Texas, but across the country. So let me just jump in to tell you a little bit about this little law school, or what Michael DeMoss called the Milagro Law School of South Texas. So like many Tejanos before him, Arnoldo Cantu left the Rio Grande Valley in the early 1980s to find work, a living wage, and better opportunities for his family. Around 1982 and 1983, he found a home in North Carolina in Brownsville, where the Brownsville natives started working construction. But he never ended. This was really interesting to me when I was talking to him for this project. He never ended his subscription to the Sunday edition of the Brownsville Herald. And so on one particular Tuesday morning, he remembers first reading that a law school was coming to Brownsville and telling his then wife that when they go back, he will attend that law school. That was not an empty promise. In 1984, just as this new and, by the way, unaccredited law school, named after the first Mexican-American federal judge appointed by President Kennedy, Cantu packed his things and headed home to the Rio Grande Valley. But the decision was not an easy one. The Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law lacked proper funding. They didn't even have a full faculty. They absolutely did not have a law library. They didn't have a building, and they were unaccredited, charging accredited law school prices. So the school was a dream, right, of up-and-coming lawyer and business owner and a recent transplant from Minnesota, Michael DeMoss, who you see pictured here in this article by the Texas Lawyer. Michael had moved his family from Minnesota to the Rio Grande Valley in the early 80s to help look after some land investments that he and his brothers shared in the valley. But DeMoss was not your typical Anglo transplant to South Texas. He was not looking to retire or become a winter Texan or speak poor Spanish and isolate himself from the predominantly Mexican-American population. Demas was a man of the people, and he had a particular skill. You see, Demas had already started a law school in Minnesota that had received accreditation and was actually doing quite well. So he immersed himself in Brownsville politics, and especially in conversations around higher education in the Rio Grande Valley. It was not long after that he was invited to help start a law school in Brownsville together with a few educators from Texas Southmost College. If you're from Brownsville, you'll recognize Texas Southmost College, or as we knew it, TSC. They had a strong case for this law school. The statewide average, follow me here, was one lawyer for every 350 people in the 1980s in the state of Texas. In the Rio Grande Valley, it was one lawyer for every 1,250 people. Today in the Rio Grande Valley, there is one lawyer per every 809 people. The need was and continues to be great. The Garza School would be the first and only professional school in South Texas at the time. A medical school program came to the region in 2015 through the University of Texas, but the closest law school to the Rio Grande Valley is more than 250 miles away in San Antonio. But a law school in the Valley was also controversial to some. Demas would quickly learn that Valley Anglos were not necessarily interested in that sort of education. He recalls when one Anglo made it known to him, quote, "Do you really think we need more lawyers, much less Mexican lawyers?" Demas proceeded. But he needed a building first. While Texas Southmost College was prohibited from providing space to an unaccredited law school, TSC was given that mandate by the Texas State Higher Education Coordinating Board led by Kenneth Ashworth at the time. Demas found space at an old vacant building at Blessed Heart Catholic Church in Brownsville. Students started to sign up. Everything you should know was official. The application process was similar, tuition and fees, and with the help of adjunct law faculty, some who had retired but who wanted to help, the school started officially in 1984 with about 30 students, which is a miracle if you think about it. A year later, the church ended its relationship to the school, but Demas found a receptive audience at Pan American University, now known as UT Rio Grande Valley. Richard Alamia, who was mayor of Edinburgh at the time, learned the school had left the church, and he extended an invitation for the school to move to Edinburgh. At the height of this school in the mid-'80s, and I'll say a little bit about how I make this jump from having no building, no law library or nothing, to then having over 200 students, a law library collection of books valued at over $2 million, donated by Mobil Oil, 7 full-time professors, 6 adjunct professors, a law librarian, 3 admin employees, and a dean. And even the Texas Bar, let me show you. I want to show you this little picture here. When they moved to Edinburgh, the city of Edinburgh provided them a beautiful little sign to make them much more official. But I should also add that with these new investments and with these new students and so forth, the Texas Bar Journal even recognized them. You see them together with South Texas College of Law, St. Mary's University, the University of Texas Law School, and so forth. They were doing so well in the mid-1980s that they were receiving that kind of recognition, even as they were not accredited. So let me stop there when the news is still good, all right? And I'll show you some more photographs here. So you all will recognize, and this will help out a little bit, you will recognize from left to right. I think you all are seeing this left to right. Okay. Left to right, of course, Henry Cisneros, Aggie alum, right, of course. But there in the middle is Reynaldo G. Garza. This was the federal judge that the school took its name after, the first Mexican-American federal judge appointed by President Kennedy in the early 1960s. And then Michael Demas, the dean of the Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law. Demas would go on to become a major advocate for the law school, going all the way to the state of Texas to fight not only for accreditation, but for recognition from the 2 flagship institutions, the University of Texas and Texas A&M University. The Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law also had about 40% of its students were women, women that otherwise across the Rio Grande Valley would not be able to leave South Texas because of family commitments or because of gender constraints, that would not be able to leave South Texas to go to law school. So 40% of those students were Mexican-American women from the Rio Grande Valley. And there on the right there, that is, you can see in the white shirt, is now Judge Arnoldo Cantu, the person that I started this story with, who left North Carolina to come back home to the Rio Grande Valley to attend the Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law. All right, I'm going to leave it there because that was bad news. So we're going to stop there. I'm going to jump and I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to come back to the Cantu Law School, but I want to fast forward to 2019. If you bear with me and just follow me, hopefully I can do this right. So in 2019, Texas State Representative Armando Martinez, Democrat from Weslaco, testified before the Texas House Committee on Higher Education to make his case to establish a public law school in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, House Bill 103. The bill received support in the House, but the state Senate did not put it up for a vote, and so the bill stalled. Rep. Martinez reintroduced the bill once again just this year in 2021, this time as House Bill 695. Just a day or two ago, I learned that the bill has now passed the Texas House, and it makes its way over to the Senate. This is not the first time or even the second time that Rep. Martinez has filed this particular bill. Since at least 2009, Rep. Martinez and a few of his colleagues have filed bills every legislative session for the approval of a law school in South Texas. These efforts make up part of a longer movement to bring fair and equitable funding for higher education to the South Texas border region that dates back to the early 1960s. I am sure you are not surprised. So let me provide you a little bit of that history. Prior to 1970, access to institutions that offer undergraduate or graduate degrees in the South Texas border region were almost non-existent. Students from the border region had to travel either to Kingsville or San Antonio. In 1968, a group of 28 representatives from Laredo, Texas, made the trip to Austin to meet with members of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, which was established in 1965, in order to make a case for the development of higher ed institutions in Laredo and along the South Texas-Mexico border. Tasked with overseeing higher ed in Texas and making recommendations to the governor and to the legislature, the coordinating board had a tremendous amount of power, still does. Yet it was often not reflective of the diversity across the state, especially when it came to representation from the border region. From 1965 to 2013, the coordinating board had 71 representatives on their board, but only 5 of those serving in the nearly 50-year period were from the border region. Only 5. Those calls for equity in higher education funding would not come to fruition until the late 1980s, when students from the now struggling Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law in Edinburgh joined a class action lawsuit against the state of Texas. And that's where we talk about this. Filed in December of 1987 on behalf of the League of United Latin American Citizens, or as we know, LULAC, the American GI Forum, the Hispanic Law Student Association of the Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law, and other organizations and individuals, MALDEF, or the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, argued that the state of Texas discriminated against Mexican Americans, especially those living in South Texas, and denied them an equal access to higher education resources. The result left South Texas residents with no choice but to attend poorly funded schools that did not offer graduate or professional programs. So let me fast forward here now. The timing of that lawsuit could not have been better. In 1990, so the lawsuit is filed in 87. In 1990, the South Texas border region was larger. So just think about this. The South Texas border region is larger than 24 individual states across the country. South Texas has more population than 34 states and offered only 1 doctoral program per million residents. In 1987, the average student in Texas would have to travel 45 miles. The average student in Texas, 45 miles to reach a public university that offered graduate degrees. A student from South Texas would have to travel more than 225 miles to reach a similar public institution. At the time that the lawsuit was filed, the region made up 20% of the state's population, but only received 10% of the state's appropriations for higher education. Of the 590 doctoral programs offered by Texas public universities at the time, only 3 were available to students on the U.S.-Mexico border. In November 1991, after 8 weeks of testimony, the jury found that the Texas legislature had failed to establish public institutions of higher education along the border, but that the defendants were not guilty of discrimination on the basis of race or ethnicity. Sound familiar? I know that it does if you know Texas history, but I'll go on, all right? On January 20th, 1992, the judge dismissed the jury's ruling and issued his own ruling prohibiting the state from funding higher education until the state enacted, quote, a constitutionally sufficient plan for funding public universities. He then stayed his injunction until May 1st, 1993, in order to give the state legislature time to enact such a plan. I'm talking about the 90s, folks, all right? I'm talking about the 90s. The state immediately appealed, and the case was directed to the Texas Supreme Court. Ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled that no evidence was presented that proved discrimination against Mexican Americans in the border region. Okay, I'll go on. Moreover, the court ruled that higher education in Texas was not, listen to this, the court ruled that higher education in Texas was not a, quote, fundamental right under the Texas Constitution. They did recognize K through 12 as being a fundamental right, but access to higher ed was another matter altogether. Regardless, the case became instrumental in launching the South Texas Border Initiative, or STBI, in 1989. The STBI was part of an initiative. So while the case is going through the courts, legislators, politicians, community activists, and other folks are not waiting for the court to make a decision. They're launching and proposing their own plan. So that's why this South Texas Border Initiative comes out even before that judge issues that stay or even before the Texas Supreme Court rules. The STBI is developed in 1989. It was part of an initiative of the Texas legislature and others to address systemic inequalities in higher education along the South Texas border that were raised by that lawsuit. The STBI made up a committee of state senators and representatives whose mission it was to, quote, enhance the scope and quality of higher education institutions and programs along the Texas-Mexico border. So let me just give you the details here. From 1990 to 2003, I was in high school and college around that time. From 1990 to 2003, South Texas Border Initiative fundamentally transformed higher education in South Texas. And if you're from South Texas, you recognize that. With more than $880 million for higher ed projects, buildings, and programs. This funded support the development and expansion of programs and degrees at UT, what we now call UT Brownsville, the University of Texas El Paso, University of Texas Pan American, Texas A&M International University, A&M University Corpus, Kingsville, on and on and on. The world completely changed from 1990 to 2003 in South Texas, the world of higher education, that is. So I say all this mostly just to provide for you a critical backdrop, a way to understand that the efforts of these students of the Reynaldo G. Garza School of Law was more than just an individual pursuit to get a law degree. It ended up fundamentally transforming South Texas. Who were these Garza students, you might say, who joined this lawsuit that fundamentally changed higher ed in South Texas? They were all first-gen college students. All of the folks that I interviewed came from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Most grew up as migrant farm workers going to Wisconsin, California, Michigan, and other places. They were all part of a post-civil rights generation of Mexican Americans that started attending college in large numbers in the late 1970s. The Reynaldo G. School of Law opened up new possibilities for women to attend law school in particular. And I've been able to interview some of these women and many of their peers who attended law school outside of the Rio Grande Valley. And for them, it was not an option due to cultural norms. I'm the oldest in the family. My parents were very conservative, Garza student Dalinda Garcia remembered. And there was no way for my parents were going to let me go out of the valley to study. No way. For another Garza student, Ana de Leon, the decision to stay in South Texas was driven more by the racism she experienced while a visit to the campus of the University of Texas at Austin. As a junior in high school, Ana remembered, one of the counselors took a few of the students up to UT to visit the campus. About 10 of us toured the campus. And when we were all walking into the cafeteria, she remembered and told me there was a group of students sitting there. And she said it like this. She said, "En pues, we all walked in together." And they started laughing at us. And they said, you know, in a loud voice, "Oh, look at all of those Mexicans walking in." It was horrible. I came back from that visit and just decided to stay in the valley. As a Garza Law School student, years later, Ana would go on to organize the Hispanic Law Student Association, one of the central groups that led the movement to get accreditation for the Garza School of Law, and joined that major lawsuit. Not only did women make up 40% of the school, they led the effort to join that lawsuit. All of the former students who studied at Garza School of Law indicated that they understood the risks of signing up and taking classes from an unaccredited law school. They were aware that they might never have the opportunity to sit for the bar exam, but they enrolled anyway. That small sliver of hope was enough for many people to sacrifice their time and their resources. Even though most Garza students were children in the heyday of the Chicano movement of the late 60s, they cited the era as providing the inspiration needed to fight for their fight to take the bar exam. "We made big sacrifices," commented Dalinda Garcia, "but we all had a fighting spirit. We never quit." That fighting spirit carried them as they took their fight to the Texas Supreme Court, as they fought for accreditation and the right to sit for the bar exam. Students, many of whom worked full-time jobs and took their law classes in the evening, became their own advocates as they sought accreditation. In 1987, the students visited the offices of their legislators, and left each of them bottles of ketchup. This is how innovative they were. They would leave bottles of ketchup with the message that it was time for the Rio Grande Valley to catch up. So that's why they left bottles of ketchup, but it was time for the Rio Grande Valley to catch up to the rest of the state. "We were pests," Garza student Diana Rivera remembered, as they visited the offices of legislators and refused to take no for an answer. But time was not on their side. With the dismal prospects for accreditation and graduation looming in 1988 for the first and second classes of the law school, who started in 84, it was clear that a waiver granting permission for them to sit for the bar was something only that the Texas Supreme Court could grant. On January 25th, 1988, 4 Texas Supreme Court justices visited the law school and shortly thereafter determined that students graduating from the law school, only the first 2 graduating classes, would have a 2-year window to sit for the bar exam. 14 students signed up for the bar exam in July of 88, shortly after their May graduation, with more to follow in the coming months after the second class graduated in December of 1988. They indeed made history. As students prepared to take the bar exam, they joined this large lawsuit with Maldif that I was telling you about and that I went back and forth on. They did all of that. They went to their classes, they studied, they read, they worked all day, they took care of their families. They changed the course of history. The oral histories that I did also make clear that the tremendous sacrifices that these students made to study law. As I mentioned, they worked full-time jobs, they were healthcare workers, they were nurses, they were teachers, and they attended classes in the evenings. On the weekends, they sacrificed time away from family to study and to prepare for class the following week. They sat in hot classrooms that did not have air conditioning in a region that averages temperatures. If you know the valley, it gets hot. I don't even have to tell you. The interviews also revealed that these students worried about possibly having to relocate classrooms frequently, as they were often kicked out from certain buildings. The work and pace of it all took a toll on them, but with the support of their family and classmates, most completed the program of study. The Garza School of Law closed in the early 1990s, but its legacy lives through 41 of the attorneys listed as graduates of the school on the Texas State Bar website. Many of them serve as judges and lawyers in South Texas to this day. And just to add a little bit of that cherry on top, Wesleyan School of Law ended up purchasing the charter once the Garza School of Law closed in the early 1990s. They took the law library from South Texas. They transferred it up to Fort Worth. And if you know the story, Texas A&M School of Law took over that very Wesleyan School of Law. So today, to this day, Garza School of Law students see themselves as former students of the Texas A&M School of Law because of that legacy. There's more to say on that. I don't have enough time, but I definitely wanted to tell you that because it's part of the tradition that the Texas A&M School of Law is forging. I'll end like this. Latinos, there still is a tremendous crisis in higher ed for our communities. We currently account for 18% of the US population. Texas has the second largest Latino population in the country, with more than 11.5 million Latinos that comprise 39% of the total state population. The Rio Grande Valley is more than 90% Latino. Texas is a state with the highest number of Latinos living in rural communities. Despite of our demographic prominence, Latinos are still substantially underrepresented in the legal profession. The American Bar Association reports that only 5% of all attorneys in the US are Latino. The State Bar of Texas reports that Latino attorneys comprise 10% of the state's bar. Most of those lawyers practice in heavily and predominantly Latino communities. I will stop there. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's time for questions or if we're going to take any or not, but that's where we're at.
Dr. Hinojosa, I think I speak for everybody in our virtual audience. Thank you so much for that story. I don't think we have any time for any questions,
Great.
but this is another mic drop moment. We're connecting dots here, people. This is we hope that you'll join us next year. You are such an asset to our campus, to our student community, to our history faculty. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks again, Dr. Hinojosa, for that great story. And again, how we, where we come from and where we are today, and just the role of Hispanics in Texas and how we're changing the future within education. I wanted to go ahead and get started. We want to wrap up today's summit with a quick business meeting. We do this at the end of every summit each year to really give our network members a little idea of what's been going on within our network, and share some of the work that we've been doing, and also let folks know about what we do as a network and how to become more involved. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, our mission statement is to serve as an advocate and support group on Hispanic concerns and issues at the university and local communities within the Association of Former Students. We really owe a lot of gratitude to the Association of Former Students, because they really chartered us at the very beginning and have supported us for the last 16 years. So we really are here to support them. But our real drive, our real charter is to increase the number of Hispanic students attending Texas A&M University, and enhancing not only their experience and education and quality of life while they're on campus, but also serving them as they graduate and enter the workforce. Our current executive committee, myself, Monica Cuellar-Menzel, class of 93, is president. Rosemary Cappuccino, class of 98, she's our first vice president. Hector Cavazos, class of 74, our treasurer. And we have an open position of secretary, and we would love for folks joining us today. If they're interested in that, there'll be an opportunity in the survey that we send at the end to write in for that if you're interested in helping our statewide team. And then Tamara Garza, 01, also the chairperson for the summit, who did a fantastic job in putting it together. She's our current social media and communications chair, and that's now going to be an open position. She's handing over the torch, and we were really looking for folks who have this great communication skills to help us. That is such a big part of what we do, is getting the word out. And so we look for folks with that skill set to join our statewide team. In addition to our statewide team, we also have representation in each of our markets. And I'm really proud to say that we've continued to build this across the state. You can see we're in Austin, here in Brazos Valley, Corpus, DFW, El Paso, Houston, Eagle Pass, and Rio Grande Valley, and in San Antonio. And in the Rio Grande Valley, we need some leadership in that region. It's spread out, and I know that makes it a challenge. But I will also mention that we also have a very strong prospective student center in the Rio Grande Valley, which makes for a great partner, as it has in all of our metro areas, in bringing in new Aggies, recruiting, and the role that we play in as a network member to support them. So it's a great partnership. And again, if you're interested in that, check us out on our website, and there's ways to get in touch with us if you're interested in representing the Rio Grande Valley. I won't go through all these numbers. Joe Pettibon went through these with us earlier. We are seeing the difference that we're making. It's showing up in the numbers, not just because of the growth of the Hispanic population, but because of the outreach that our organization is doing. You saw the partnership that we have with General Ramirez. He's always been a supporter, and his recruitment efforts have done a lot to increase these numbers. I mentioned the prospective student centers. These are located in each of the metro areas, and they work as a central place for students to come, high school students to come to get educated about Texas A&M. They also help in matriculation events where a student has been admitted to Texas A&M and is still deciding if they want to come. And they invite members of our network to these events to help talk to the parents in their language, talk to the students about their experience, and really convince them to come be a part of Texas A&M. And so we have a strong partnership with them across the state. Joe Pettibon talked a lot about the scholarship programs that we have. We help support that, getting the word out about that. And of course, working closely with the association and the other constituent groups. We have a really nice partnership with the Black Former Student Group as well, the Aggie Women's Association. So those are ways that we could collectively synergize our efforts in outreach. And so we have a very strong partnership with them. And we talked a little bit about our designation as a Hispanic serving institution. We're right there on the cusp. We're trying to reach that 25%, sustaining that over some time to get that designation. And we're well on our way, and we've made some great progress just in the last few years. If you wonder about what our network does, I've talked a little bit about that. We try to grow our membership. Membership dues help fund scholarships, and the work that we do, we try to do fundraising, and we award those scholarships within each of the regions. And so that membership drive and fundraising activities that occur within those local chapters really help that. We do campus visits, high school presentations, bringing kids to campus. General Ramirez said it best. Once you get them here, that's the hook. And so we work very closely with, again, the prospective student centers, with high school counselors to help bring kids here. You bring them for a football game and you've got them. And so that's a big part of what we like to do. Of course, we also do networking events. As former students, we're on a career trajectory, and we want to host events and design events that provide professional development, networking across different corporations that our members represent, employee resource groups within some of those large corporations, networking for jobs and career placement. And we're working on some ways to be able to facilitate that through our member management system and our website. So that more to come. And of course, just the fun part of getting together as a network. We do tailgating a lot of times at the AT&T Center when we have our annual game up there, when things get back when football gets back as we knew it. And so tailgating will come back, and we're going to be a part of it as a network. Also, community service. We do get together and we do things during the holidays, we do fundraising, we do food bank, for some of those underserved communities in the areas that our local chapters are in, and that's something that I know is a source of pride and fulfillment for many of our members. And of course, just the network being the network itself, promoting and sharing our stories across social media, getting it out, stories of interest, and word of mouth is so strong in what we do, and to encourage people to consider A&M as a choice, and being able to share those stories of current students and former students and the work that they're doing really, really helps us. And so the more of us that are out there doing that, the more those stories get around. Just a couple announcements I just wanted to share. The 2021 scholarship, again, with the generous funding that we've got from our sponsors, which we shared at the beginning of the meeting, that's going to be open April 21st. It's easy to remember because that's muster. That will be available on our website, and we will be offering scholarships to incoming freshmen, to current students, to graduate students, to transfer students. We'll also be offering a boot scholarship for senior boots and a ring scholarship as well. So we encourage you guys to get the word out about that and drive folks to our website to make that application. And I'm also pleased to announce that the 2022 summit, which we really hope, fingers crossed, will be live and in person. We will be doing that in Houston, and we will get that date out to you as soon as we know it. So for Houston folks that are joining today, perhaps you'll be able to join us in person next year. So we're really looking forward to that. I wanted to give a quick update on our financials. Currently, we're sitting at $60,587 in funding right now. A lot of this will churn through the year as we begin offering scholarships from each of the areas, from each of the local chapters. And again, this is driven by membership dues that and fundraising that takes place in each of the chapters. And so I just wanted to mention that this is a big increase from last year where we were in 2019. And I attribute that largely to the establishment of our member management system, the ability for folks to sign up. And again, we've got multiple ways that you can do that in terms of membership levels. There's a standard annual membership of $50. New graduates, within the last 2 years, membership is only $30, but the one I would recommend for everyone, easy on the pocketbook and generous at the same time, $12 for 12-month subscription, the 12 for 12. Please consider signing up for that. And again, you can designate what chapter you'd like for that to go to support local scholarships. To get to any of this information that I shared, our website, tamhn.aggienetwork.com, or email tamhn@aggienetwork.com to learn about more about what we do. And if you missed any of the topics that we covered, happy to share that with you all. I'd like to bring up Dr. Roger Martinez to talk a little bit about our Family Legacy Program. And this is another fundraising program that we started. Actually, one of our founding members started it back in 2014. So Roger, would you mind coming and sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, howdy. The Texas A&M Hispanic Network Family Legacy was started by Danielle and Anita Hernandez, class of 73. The purpose is to raise $250,000 to support Hispanic students at Texas A&M University. This campaign will leave a financial legacy in the names of loved ones that honor their contribution to the Aggie experience. The Family Legacy contributions will be used to support recruiting, scholarships, and student activity involvement. It'll help defray costs related to fish camp, internships, educational travel, leadership and career development seminars, to name a few. To be a member of the 100 Club, as you can see on the Family Legacy slide there's multiple ways to do this. There can be a one-time contribution of $2,500. There can be a contribution over 5 years at $500 per year for 5 years. This is all done through the foundation, the Texas A&M Foundation, and is all tax deductible. If anyone has any company matching program, that would be excellent and could double or even triple with some of the organizations. And again, the minimum's $2,500. You can do more than that. There is a program out there where the foundation also has an endowment opportunity of $25,000 or more, which provides scholarships in the amount of 4% of the endowment amount. So if it's 25,000, which is the minimum, it's 4% of that. If it's 50,000 or 100,000, and those scholarships go over time, perpetuity. That's pretty hard to say there. Perpetuity. It goes over a long time. And so all who support the campaign will be part of the 100 Club and receive a 100 Club lapel pin. The ladies here are also in it. They're part of it. You can bring your family in. It doesn't have to be just one. There could be multiple family members can add to it to come up with the minimum or more. You'll be recognized on our website. We will send everyone information via email to you on it. The actual website is txamfoundation.com/give. Again, we will send that information to you. So that's the family legacy that the Hernandez family has supported. Another major initiative that the Hernandez family has funded is the Danielle and Bridget Hernandez Education Fund, son of Danielle Hernandez Sr., who started the Family Legacy Program. Danielle Jr., his foundation they 100% subsidize the purchase of Aggie rings for the entire pioneer class of Aggies at the Texas A&M University Higher Education Center in McAllen. Thank you to Danielle and Bridget for their generous donation from the Hernandez Education Foundation. Your support of the Family Legacy campaign will make a difference. You've seen the students, you've seen different speakers up here, how fast the time flies with all this great information and all the work that everyone put into this. We definitely invite you to join the 100 Club and have an impact on our future leaders. So with that, I will turn that back over.
Thank you, Roger. We appreciate that. And again, thank you to all those that have supported us over the years of the Family Legacy program. We haven't quite reached 100 families yet, so there's still room to get into that echelon of donation. And so we hope that you will consider being a part of this. I want to thank everybody for attending today. I know it was our first virtual. Hopefully it may be our one and only, but gosh, it's been a great day today. We've enjoyed all of the speakers, and again, so proud of the students and the work that they're doing. And a thank you to all the former students that led the way before them and before us in creating this network and providing this kind of support for future Aggies. Again, don't forget to complete the survey and the election ballot that will be coming to you at the top of the hour as soon as we conclude. Thank you again for attending. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for all of their work in supporting us. And thanks to all of our students and speakers today. Gracias y gigam.